Welcome, weary traveller of the modern world. Leave the frantic pace of your day at the threshold, letting the heavy burdens of the present slip from your tired shoulders like a cloak falling gently to the floor. Tonight we journey backward through the mists of time, carrying you safely across the vast ocean of centuries to a quiet, forgotten corner of Kyoto in the year 1460. You are entirely safe here, wrapped in the soft, protective embrace of shadows and stillness. Close your eyes and let the rhythmic cadence of your breathing guide you deep into a realm where the ticking clock surrenders to the eternal hush of twilight. The air around you begins to change, growing slightly cooler, carrying the faint, earthy fragrance of damp cedarwood, roasted green tea leaves, and the subtle, resinous, sweet scent of ancient sap. You find yourself standing before the sliding wooden doors of a master artisan's sanctuary. This is the Muro, the quiet, dimly lit room where lacquer rests and breathes, where broken things are made whole again through the slow, deliberate art of kintsugi. There is no rush in this place. Time itself moves like thick golden honey dripping lazily into the quiet evening, as the fading sun casts long amber beams through the translucent paper screens. You are invited to step inside, sink deeply into the cushions of history, let your muscles soften, and allow the tranquil spirit of the Muromachi period to wash over you. Before we cross this weathered wooden threshold, take a single, slow and deep breath in. Feel the cool evening breeze gently rustling the leaves of the old maple tree outside, its crimson leaves brushing softly against the roof tiles. As you exhale, imagine releasing any lingering tension into the drifting winds of the past. If you find comfort in these quiet journeys through history, if your mind seeks a sanctuary away from the blinding lights and deafening noises of the modern era, consider lingering here with us. By gently pressing the subscribe button, you secure your place within our hidden courtyard of stories, ensuring you will always have a peaceful retreat waiting for you whenever sleep evades your tired eyes. Liking this video is akin to leaving a softly glowing paper lantern at our doorstep, guiding other weary travelers who wander the digital night, searching for the very same stillness you have found. We invite you to share your thoughts in the quiet comments below, whispering your favorite moments like secrets shared over a warm, steaming cup of roasted matcha tea. Now, let the outside world simply fade away into insignificance. The master artisan is waiting within, his seasoned hands preparing the precious gold dust and the deep crimson lacquer. The cicadas are beginning their slow, rhythmic evening lullaby, humming softly in the bamboo grove. Settle into the cushions, close your eyes once more, and let the gentle embrace of the 15th century welcome you back home to rest now. As we step away from the bustling thoroughfares of 15th century Kyoto, leaving behind the distant, fading echoes of merchants closing their heavy wooden shutters and the soft, rhythmic clopping of woven straw sandals on packed earth, we find ourselves standing at the very edge of an intimate, securely enclosed courtyard garden. This is a secluded sanctuary of profound and enduring silence, meticulously cultivated over unseen generations to reflect the harmonious, delicate balance of nature itself. The evening sky, stretching vast and infinite above the gracefully curved, charcoal-grey ceramic tiles of the overhanging roof, has deepened into a magnificent bruised tapestry of deep indigo, soft lavender, and the final fading embers of a burned orange sunset. The light is slowly changing now, shifting gracefully from the bright, demanding clarity of the afternoon into the heavy velvet dusk of the Muromachi period. Below our feet, the ground is entirely carpeted in a thick, undulating sea of ancient star moss, glowing with a rich, luminescent emerald hue in the gathering twilight. This moss is not merely a plant, it is a living, breathing cushion that eagerly swallows all ambient sound, dampening the harshness of the outside world until absolutely nothing remains but a profound, resonant and comforting quiet. Heavy, rounded stepping stones known in this ancient tongue as tobi-ishi are carefully embedded into this soft green expanse, creating a winding, deliberate path that gently forces the racing mind to slow its anxious thoughts, guiding the feet with measured, mindful precision. Each solitary stone is entirely unique, having been plucked from the rushing, icy waters of the distant Kamo River many decades ago. Their coarse surfaces perfectly smoothed and rounded by centuries of flowing water, and the gentle, reverent tread of countless visitors seeking solace in the shade. Take a long, unhurried moment to simply gaze down at these slate-grey river stones. As the evening air begins to cool, losing the trapped heat of the day, a delicate, glistening sheen of moisture slowly forms upon their polished, unyielding surfaces. This subtle dew captures the last dying rays of the sun, reflecting them back upward like scattered pearls of liquid moonlight resting on a bed of green velvet. The gathering dampness amplifies the rich colours of the garden, making the grey slate stones appear almost as dark as polished obsidian, and the surrounding moss even more vibrantly, impossibly rich. The atmosphere here is remarkably heavy and sweet, heavily laden with the intoxicating, grounding perfume of damp earth, bruised pine needles, and the faint, almost imperceptible floral fragrance of late-blooming white camellias hiding quietly somewhere in the encroaching protective shadows. With every slow, deliberate breath you take, drawing the cool air deep into your lungs, the rich, loamy scent of the undisturbed soil anchors you, drawing your conscious awareness away from the exhausting, anxious flutterings of the modern mind, and securing it firmly within the physical, undeniable sensation of the present moment. You can actually feel the subtle, creeping shift in the microclimate as you move deeper into the courtyard, the air growing perceptibly more humid still and dense. The gentle rustling of the bamboo grove standing tall, slender, and impossibly green just beyond the protective earthen wall provides a soft, hypnotic, and rhythmic soundtrack to your slow progression. The hollow green stalks knock together in the gentle breeze with a deep wooden resonance that sounds exactly like the slow, steady heartbeat of the earth itself, lulling your senses deeper into a state of profound and unshakable tranquility. Following the meandering, unhurried path of the river stones, you finally arrive at the edge of the engawa, the traditional wooden veranda that serves as a graceful floating bridge between the untamed, organic beauty of the garden and the constructed, mathematical sanctuary of the master artisan's dwelling. The engawa is elevated slightly above the damp, mossy earth, resting securely upon sturdy, immovable wooden posts that have stood firm and unwavering through decades of torrential seasonal rains, howling typhoons, and the gentle, silent descent of winter snowfalls. The wide floorboards are masterfully crafted from thick, solid planks of Japanese hinoki cypress, a revered wood highly prized for its incredible lasting durability, its impossibly fine, straight grain, and its delightfully soothing, crisp, lemon-scented aroma. Over the passage of countless unrecorded years, these sturdy floorboards have been polished to a magnificent, entirely frictionless sheen by the simple, repeated and gentle friction of soft cotton tabby socks and bare, calloused feet moving back and forth in quiet, solitary contemplation. The surface of the wood has long since lost the bright, raw, unweathered colour of its youth, mellowing instead into a soft, silvery grey patina that feels incredibly smooth, almost like polished stone, yet remains remarkably warm and forgiving to the gentle touch. As you step softly up onto the veranda, leaving the dampness of the garden behind, you can instantly feel the subtle, comforting texture of the raised wood grain beneath your feet, a tactile, grounding reminder of the massive living tree from which these planks were so carefully carved. The seasoned wood seems to retain a faint, lingering, ghostly echo of the afternoon sun's warmth, offering a comforting, maternal embrace against the creeping, inevitable chill of the twilight air. Here, suspended weightlessly between the breathing garden and the quiet interior, you exist entirely in a space of perfect, peaceful transition. Before you stands the secluded entrance to the Muro, protected from the elements by a series of delicate, lightweight shoji screens that glow softly with a faint, warm amber light emanating from somewhere deep within. These sliding doors are unparalleled marvels of minimalist 15th century craftsmanship, consisting of a fragile geometric lattice made from perfectly straight aged cedar wood over which exquisitely thin, translucent washi paper has been meticulously stretched, glued and secured. Take a long, quiet moment to truly look at the texture of this washi paper. It is not cold, uniform, or perfectly smooth like the harsh, mass-produced sheets of the modern world you left behind. Instead, it is beautifully organic, textured, and wonderfully imperfect, handmade from the repeatedly pounded inner bark of the mountain mulberry bush. If you lean in closely, bringing your face near the soft, radiating light, You can clearly see the long, intertwined, chaotic fibers of the pale bark suspended endlessly within the paper, looking like tiny frozen wisps of cloud, or the delicate, branching veins of a pale winter leaf preserved in ice. This remarkable breathable paper acts as an absolute master of light diffusion, taking the sharp, potentially harsh, direct light of the oil lamps burning inside and scattering it gently into a soft, glowing, ambient radiance that beautifully illuminates the wooden veranda without ever piercing the comforting darkness of the evening. The jagged shadows of a nearby twisting pine branch are cast upon the glowing screen from the outside, creating an exquisite, slow-moving and mesmerizing shadow play as the evening breeze gently sways the sharp needles back and forth. The stark contrast between the dark, sharp silhouette of the swaying pine and the warm, golden, inviting glow of the textured washi paper creates a scene of breathtaking, melancholic beauty. It is a perfect, silent, visual representation of the ancient wabi-sabi philosophy, a mindset that finds profound, enduring elegance in the fleeting, the shadowed, the beautifully imperfect, and the quietly understated moments of ordinary life. Gently, with the utmost reverence for the silence of the evening, you reach out and place your open hand flat against the wooden frame of the shoji screen. You apply a slight, even downward pressure, and the lightweight door glides open along its polished wooden track with a soft, deeply satisfying and drawn-out shh sound. It is a hushed, breathy whisper of dry wood sliding harmoniously against dry wood that seems to bid you a warm, ancestral welcome. As the screen parts, revealing the hidden interior, you step carefully over the low, polished wooden threshold and enter the sacred, protected space of the Muro itself. Immediately, without warning, you are completely enveloped by a drastically different atmosphere, a climate carefully engineered for preservation and transformation. The air inside the Muro is deliberately, meticulously kept thick, heavy, and intensely humid. It wraps securely around your shoulders like a warm, weighted, damp blanket, instantly soothing your chilled skin and relaxing the deepest, most tired muscles in your body. This intensely high humidity is not an accident. It is an absolute necessity, a vital secret whispered quietly from master to apprentice for countless generations. For traditional urushi lacquer, the lifeblood of this room does not simply dry by the evaporation of water like ordinary paints. Rather, it cures, hardens, and achieves its legendary glass-like finish by actively absorbing moisture from the surrounding heavy air. The room smells intensely and wonderfully of damp, tightly packed earth, for the thick walls themselves are heavily plastered with multiple painstaking layers of special mountain mud and chopped straw, designed to perfectly regulate the precious life-giving moisture within the room. Floating gracefully beneath the heavy scent of the earthen walls lies the deeply complex, resinous and slightly sweet aroma of the raw urushi sap itself, a fragrance that speaks volumes of ancient untouched forests, slow-growing bleeding trees, and the meticulous, painstaking human extraction of nature's most resilient golden nectar. It is a smell of profound, unwavering patience, of endless waiting, and of willingly allowing the slow, majestic passage of time to do its necessary, invisible, and miraculous work in the encompassing, comforting dark. As the lightweight wooden frame of the shoji screen slides gently shut behind you, sealing you completely within the comforting, heavy embrace of the Muro, the last lingering murmurs of the external world are entirely extinguished. You are now fully submerged in a profound, velvety darkness that is only barely interrupted by the faint, rhythmic fluttering of a single solitary flame. Resting upon a low, sturdy wooden pedestal in the very center of the earthen floor is a small, heavy bronze oil lamp, its surface mottled with the gorgeous, verdigris patina of countless years spent in this humid sanctuary. Thick hand-spun cotton wick rests in a shallow pool of golden, viscous oil pressed from roasted sesame seeds, drawing the heavy liquid upward to feed the tiny, trembling, teardrop-shaped flame. The light it casts is incredibly soft, possessing a rich, golden amber quality that seems to sway through the dense air like honey flowing over stones. Because the atmosphere inside this curing room is so meticulously loaded with moisture, the light does not travel in harsh straight lines. Instead, it diffuses, bending and warping as it encounters the invisible water vapor suspended all around you. This creates a mesmerizing, dreamlike optical illusion where the corners of the room seem to recede endlessly into the shadows, and the walls themselves appear to breathe, gently expanding and contracting with every subtle dancing flicker of the burning wick. The air here is overwhelmingly thick, wrapping around your skin like a warm, protective shroud, and it carries the unmistakable heavy scent of damp earth mingling with the sweet, almost medicinal fragrance of raw urushi resin. It is a scent that immediately grounds you, anchoring your wandering mind to the heavy, slow-moving rhythm of the earth itself, compelling your heartbeat to slow down and synchronize with the absolute, undisturbed stillness of the room. Allowing your eyes a long, patient moment to adjust to this dim, golden twilight, you begin to perceive the magnificent architectural skeleton of the Muro. The walls surrounding you are not made of fragile wood or delicate paper, but of thick, solid earth, expertly plastered by master craftsmen using a highly specialized mixture of mountain clay, fine river sand, and chopped, fermented rice straw. If you were to run your fingertips lightly across the surface of these walls, you would feel a coarse, granular texture, delightfully cool to the touch, and surprisingly porous. These thick earthen barriers are the invisible guardians of the lacquer, acting as massive, natural sponges that constantly inhale and exhale the ambient moisture, ensuring that the humidity within the room remains perfectly, eternally constant, regardless of the raging typhoons or dry winter winds that might sweep across the ancient capital outside. Built seamlessly into these breathing walls are row upon row of sturdy, staggered wooden shelves, constructed from thick, unvarnished planks of mature Japanese cedar. The wood has deliberately been left raw and untreated, entirely free of any sealing oils or waxes, allowing it to fully participate in the atmospheric exchange of the room, naturally absorbing excess dampness when the air grows too heavy and slowly releasing it back when the room begins to dry. Over decades of constant exposure to the dark, resinous environment, the cedar shelves have absorbed the very essence of the urushi sap, their normally pale surfaces gradually darkening into a deep, rich chocolate brown, while emanating a faint, persistent, and incredibly soothing aroma of ancient forests and quiet, shadowed glades. These shelves are not merely storage spaces, they are the resting beds for wounded treasures, the quiet hospital wards where fractured history waits patiently for its glorious golden resurrection. Let us draw closer, moving with slow, deliberate steps, so as not to disturb the thick suspended air, and examine the sleeping occupants of these shadowed shelves. Resting upon a square of faded indigo-dyed silk on the shelf closest to your shoulder sits an antique tea bowl, a magnificent irregular vessel born from the fiery, unpredictable kilns of the surrounding mountains. It is a beautiful, melancholic testament to the wabi-sabi aesthetic, its surface glazed in a muted, mottled palette of deep, stony greys and the rusty, oxidized browns of autumn leaves. Yet this exquisite bowl is not whole. It has suffered a traumatic fall at some point in its long, undocumented history, shattering into 4 distinct, jagged pieces. However, here in the Muro, this fracture is not viewed as the end of the bowl's life, but merely a necessary, poignant transition into a far more beautiful and meaningful existence. The master artisan has already begun the impossibly slow, meticulous process of reassembly. The jagged edges of the broken ceramic fragments have been carefully, lovingly coated with the first foundational layer of raw, black urushi lacquer, a sticky, incredibly strong natural adhesive that binds the shattered pieces back together with a grip that will eventually outlast the fired clay itself. The bowl now sits in perfect, absolute silence, its broken pieces held tightly together by the dark, curing resin, resting in the heavy humidity for weeks on end, allowing the lacquer to slowly drink in the moisture it desperately needs to harden into an impenetrable, stone-like seal. If you lean in until your face is merely inches from the vessel, you can clearly see the incredibly fine, precise hairline seams of the dark lacquer tracing their way across the rough, grey glaze like the delicate, branching tributaries of a dried riverbed, or the jagged, powerful forks of dark lightning permanently frozen against a stormy sky. It is a profoundly moving sight, a silent, powerful promise that what is broken will not only be repaired, but will be elevated, celebrated, and adorned, its very scars destined to become its most magnificent, valuable feature. Directly beneath these slumbering, fractured treasures lies the artisan's work surface, a massive, solid slab of ancient Zelkova wood, its surface heavily scarred, deeply stained and burnished, to an incredible dark luster by decades of continuous devoted and painstaking labor. The tabletop is an organized, deliberate landscape of tools, each resting in its designated place with the precision of stones in a dry garden. There are incredibly thin, delicate wooden spatulas carved with obsessive care from the heartwood of the cypress tree, their tips shaped, sanded, and curved into a myriad of specialized forms, some as flat and broad as a willow leaf, others as fine and sharp as the needle of a pine. These spatulas are used to coax, spread, and manipulate the thick, temperamental lacquer with a feather-light touch, guiding the sticky resin into the deepest, most microscopic crevices of the shattered ceramics. Beside them rest small, shallow dishes of pristine white porcelain, holding tiny, precious pools of different lacquer grades, their surfaces shining like dark, unblinking mirrors in the wavering lamplight. There is the dark foundational ki-urushi, the rich, blood-red urushi used for the final decorative layers, and the thick, paste-like sabi-urushi, a clever, strengthening mixture of raw sap and finely powdered clay used to fill deep, gaping voids in the broken pottery. And arranged with the utmost care upon a specialized, slotted bamboo rest are the artisan's most prized possessions, the exceedingly fine, delicate brushes used to lay down the final lines of pure gold dust. These brushes are masterpieces, their impossibly thin tips crafted from fine hairs of mountain rats or selected strands of human hair, bound tightly to bamboo handles with crimson silk thread. The room is so entirely, completely still that you can hear the incredibly faint, high-pitched pop of a tiny microscopic air bubble escaping from the surface of the pooled lacquer, a sound so small it is almost indistinguishable from the gentle rhythmic beating of your own heart. Here, surrounded by the tools of restoration and the sleeping broken vessels, time entirely ceases its relentless, exhausting forward march, dissolving instead into a beautiful, unending state of peaceful, golden anticipation. As we gently shift our gaze from the sleeping, fractured vessels resting quietly upon their unvarnished cedar beds, we notice a small, slightly elevated wooden platform situated in the deepest, most protected corner of the Muro. This intimate, designated space is meant solely for the master artisan, a dedicated sanctuary of profound, unbroken focus nestled securely within the larger sanctuary of preservation. Resting perfectly flush upon this raised wooden dais is a single, remarkably worn tatami mat, its dimensions conforming exactly to the ancient sacred geometry of traditional Japanese architecture. Unlike the coarse, damp, tightly packed soil of the earthen floor below, the surface of this mat offers a beautifully yielding, fibrous and organic texture woven entirely from tightly bundled cylindrical strands of dry, hollow Igusa rush grass. Over countless years of receiving the silent, patient weight of the kneeling artisan, the mat has undergone a magnificent, incredibly slow transformation. The vibrant, crisp, spring-green hue of its youth has long since mellowed and faded, surrendering gracefully to a soft, comforting shade of pale, toasted wheat and warm antique gold. If you were to kneel down and brush the sensitive tips of your fingers lightly across its surface, you would feel the intricate, rhythmic, interlocking pattern of the weave, a continuous, rippling topography of miniature ridges and gentle valleys that feels wonderfully soothing and grounding against bare skin. The mat continuously releases a faint, deeply nostalgic fragrance into the heavy, humid air of the room, a comforting scent reminiscent of sun-baked hay, dried autumn fields, and the faint, dusty sweetness of an old, undisturbed library. The edges of the mat are beautifully bound in strips of durable, heavy-loomed hemp cloth, dyed a deep, dark indigo that has slowly rubbed away at the corners, revealing the lighter, natural cotton threads beneath in a breathtaking display of gentle, beautiful decay. Nestled quietly against the thick, breathing earthen wall, just an arm's reach from the edge of the woven tatami mat, sits a miniature, exquisitely crafted chest of drawers known in this era as a tansu. This small, unassuming cabinet is an absolute masterclass of functional traditional joinery, constructed entirely from the incredibly lightweight, highly porous wood of the Paulownia tree. This specific material was deliberately chosen for its miraculous natural ability to expand and contract in perfect, unbroken harmony with the fluctuating humidity of the passing seasons, thereby keeping the precious contents of its drawers perfectly, eternally dry, completely unaffected by the heavy dampness of the room. The surface of the pale Paulownia wood has been left entirely bare, completely unvarnished and unpainted, allowing its breathtakingly delicate silvery grain to remain fully, proudly visible in the golden lamplight. The wide, sweeping, elegant lines of the wood grain flow gracefully across the fronts of the tiny drawers like the gentle, expanding ripples on the surface of a remarkably still woodland pond shortly after a single solitary autumn leaf has fallen lightly onto the water. Securing the delicate corners and providing practical handles for each small drawer are tiny, meticulously hand-forged iron fittings, their surfaces completely blackened by a blacksmith's fire and coated in a thin, protective, invisible layer of sweet camellia oil to prevent the creeping, destructive rust of the damp Muro. The iron handles are shaped gracefully into the stylized, minimalist form of drooping willow branches, their cold, hard metal providing a stunning tactile contrast to the incredibly soft, warm, yielding nature of the surrounding wood. When the artisan reaches out to gently pull one of these iron handles, the drawer slides outward with an incredibly smooth, perfectly balanced, and deeply satisfying sigh, a hushed whisper of precision woodwork that speaks volumes of a time when objects were built not for a single, fleeting lifetime, but for endless, sweeping generations. Within these meticulously crafted, smooth-sliding drawers lie the true hidden treasures of the kintsugi art, the precious, pulverized weighting elements that will eventually transform the dark, sticky foundational urushi lacquer into breathtaking rivers of pure flowing light. Wrapped with obsessive care in small, perfectly square pieces of handmade mulberry paper are microscopic mountains of pure, gleaming metallic dust. There are tiny, tightly folded, crisp packets containing incredibly fine silver powder, which shimmers and shifts in the dim, wavering lamplight exactly like crushed, frozen winter moonlight, resting quietly alongside heavier, denser packets of coarse brass and tin, traditionally used by apprentices for practicing the incredibly delicate, unforgiving strokes of the brush. But nestled securely in the very centered drawer, resting upon a remarkably soft, protective bed of crimson silk, is the pure, unadulterated gold. This is not the bright, garish, highly polished, reflective gold of the noisy modern world. This precious dust has been painstakingly filed, ground, and sifted by hand, reduced to an unbelievably fine, flour-like consistency that possesses a deep, muted, almost solemn luster. It is a heavy, matted, absorbing gold, carrying the profound visual weight of setting suns and ancient buried crowns. When the master artisan carefully unfolds the heavily creased mulberry paper, the tiny resting pile of gold dust seems to swallow the ambient light in the room, glowing entirely from within, with a rich, warm, and intensely captivating radiance. Lying peacefully next to the packets of gold are small, incredibly smooth, highly polished agate stones and the gracefully curved, hardened teeth of sea bream, mounted perfectly onto slender, lightweight bamboo handles. These peculiar organic tools are burnishers used in the very final, triumphant, celebratory stages of the repair process to firmly compress the delicate layer of gold dust, smoothing it down repeatedly until it achieves a breathtaking, flawless, glass-like shine that perfectly mirrors the quiet soul of whoever gazes upon it. Just the sight of these dormant, patiently waiting materials fills the heavy air of the Muro with a profound sense of quiet, building anticipation, a silent, unbroken promise of the magnificent, radiant beauty that is soon to awaken from the darkness. As we sit quietly, resting securely on the warm, woven tatami mat, completely surrounded by the sleeping tools, the raw potential energy of the gold, and the slow, rhythmic breathing of the damp earthen walls, we gradually become aware of a tiny, rectangular opening located high up, nestled closely against the heavily shadowed, sloped ceiling. This is a small, carefully designed ventilation grate, an essential architectural feature engineered specifically to allow the barest, most microscopic minimum of fresh night air to slowly, gently circulate into the dense, heavy, oppressive atmosphere of the curing room. The narrow opening is securely barred with slender, perfectly round stalks of aged, smoke-cured bamboo, lashed tightly and methodically together with thin, strong, blackened hemp twine. Through the incredibly narrow, parallel slits between the dark bamboo stalks, we are granted a tiny, beautifully framed, fragmented glimpse of the vast, sleeping external world we so happily left behind. The evening sky, visible through the grate, has now surrendered completely and unconditionally to the absolute velvety darkness of true deep night. It is a profound, bottomless, oceanic indigo completely undisturbed by the artificial harsh glow of modern cities, offering a flawless, perfectly empty canvas for the silent, majestic silver procession of the early stars. Suddenly, cutting cleanly and smoothly through the thick, humid air of the moss garden outside and drifting softly through the narrow bamboo grate, comes the incredibly deep, resonating sound of a distant temple bell. It is the evening bonsho, the great massive bronze bell of a nearby secluded Zen monastery, struck gently yet firmly by a massive, swinging wooden beam. The sound is not a sharp, alarming clang, nor is it a sudden, jarring noise, but a slow, beautifully blooming, oceanic vibration. Boo-oom! It rolls slowly and majestically over the curved, overlapping ceramic rooftops of the ancient capital, travelling smoothly through the rapidly cooling night air, descending gracefully into the quiet courtyard, and finally entering the peaceful sanctuary of the Muro. You do not merely hear this beautiful sound with your ears, you feel it echoing deep within the very centre of your chest. It is a warm, rolling, physical vibration that hums softly against your ribs, harmonizing perfectly with the slow, steady rhythm of your deepening breath, washing away the very last, stubborn remnants of worldly anxiety, and pulling you ever deeper and deeper into the profound, endless, restorative sleep of history. Within the dense, humid silence of the Muro, the artisan finally begins to move, his motions so slow and fluid that they seem to emerge from the shadows rather than disrupt them. He is an elderly man, his back slightly curved from decades of leaning over his low workbench, yet his posture conveys an aura of immense, unshakable strength and centeredness. His hands are the true historians of this space. They are weathered, the skin toughened and stained a deep, permanent mahogany by a lifetime of intimate contact with raw urushi sap. These are not the soft, pampered hands of a scholar, but the resilient, seasoned tools of a master who has spent 20,000 days in the company of broken things. The knuckles are thick and prominent, like the gnarled roots of an ancient mountain pine, and the palms are calloused, yet they possess a sensitivity that is almost supernatural. As he reaches out to lift a small, cracked stoneware jar, his fingers do not merely grab. They flow around the ceramic body, sensing every microscopic fissure, every hidden structural weakness, and the exact temperature of the fired clay. He holds the jar with a profound maternal tenderness, as if he were cradling a wounded bird that had fallen from its nest in the bamboo grove. You watch mesmerized and completely still, as he selects a broad, flat spatula carved from the dense heartwood of a mountain cypress. The tool has been sanded to such an incredible degree of smoothness that it feels more like silk than wood, its edge tapering down to a thickness that is nearly invisible to the naked eye. The artisan dips the very tip of the cypress spatula into a shallow porcelain bowl containing a mixture of raw, dark lacquer and finely sieved powdered clay, the sabi urushi. This paste is thick, earthy, and remarkably heavy, possessing the consistency of soft, cooling volcanic mud. With a deliberate, agonizingly slow precision, he begins to apply the paste to a jagged, gaping void where a piece of the jar's rim was lost many years ago. There is no haste in his movement, no wasted effort, and no hesitation. Each stroke of the spatula is a meditative ritual, a silent prayer of restoration. You can hear the incredibly faint, rhythmic scritch of the wooden blade moving across the rough, unglazed ceramic. A sound so delicate and dry that it seems to enhance the surrounding silence rather than break it. He works with the focused intensity of a diamond cutter, his eyes narrowed in the flickering amber light of the sesame oil lamp, observing how the dark paste clings to the jagged edges of the stoneware. He builds the repair layer by painstaking layer, never adding too much at once, knowing that the heavy humidity of the room must be allowed to penetrate the lacquer slowly and evenly. To rush this process would be to invite failure. The lacquer would skin over too quickly, trapping wetness inside and causing the repair to eventually crumble. In this 15th century sanctuary, time is not a resource to be managed or a deadline to be met, but a vital, living ingredient in the art itself, as essential as the gold dust or the mountain clay. As the artisan works, his breathing becomes deep, rhythmic, and audible, a soft oceanic rise and fall that fills the small room with a sense of living vitality. Each inhalation is slow and measured, drawing in the humid resin-scented air, and each exhalation is a long, controlled release that seems to guide the very movement of his hand. You find your own breath beginning to synchronize with his, your chest expanding and contracting in perfect, peaceful harmony with the master's rhythm. The flickering flame of the bronze lamp casts long, dancing shadows of his hands against the earthen walls, magnified, ghostly silhouettes that look like the wings of a great, slow-moving bird in flight. These shadows sway and dip across the staggered cedar shelves, momentarily illuminating the dark, curing vessels before retreating back into the velvet gloom. The entire room seems to be pulsing with this slow, rhythmic energy, a heartbeat of creation that has remained unchanged for centuries. You watch as he uses a smaller, needle-thin spatula to smooth the edges of the repair, feathering the dark paste into the surrounding glaze until the transition is absolutely seamless. The level of detail is staggering. He spends several long minutes just adjusting a single microscopic grain of the clay mixture, ensuring that the structural foundation of the repair is flawless. This is the hidden beauty of kintsugi, the immense amount of labor and soul poured into the layers that will eventually be covered by gold, the invisible integrity that gives the final work its profound resonant power. Once the void is filled and the surface is perfectly leveled, the artisan sets the cypress spatula down with a soft wooden clack on the Zelkova workbench. He then picks up a small damp square of hand-woven hemp cloth, which has been soaked in a dilute solution of rice vinegar and water. With a touch as light as a falling cherry blossom, he wipes away the tiniest stray smudge of lacquer from the jar's original glaze. The damp cloth leaves a fleeting, glistening trail of moisture on the stoneware, which evaporates almost instantly in the warm, humid air, leaving the ceramic clean and the repair sharp and defined. He holds the jar up to the light of the oil lamp, slowly rotating it between his dark, stained fingers. The amber glow catches the wet black surface of the fresh lacquer, making it shine like a pool of dark ink or a piece of polished obsidian. In this moment, the jar is transformed. It is no longer merely a broken utensil, but a canvas for a story of survival and renewal. The jagged line of the repair, though still dark and unfinished, possesses a striking raw beauty that commands respect. It is a scar that is being honored, a history that is being celebrated. The artisan looks at the jar not with the critical eye of a judge, but with the quiet, satisfied smile of an old friend. He knows that he has provided the vessel with the strength it needs to endure for another 100 years, and that the slow, silent work of the humidity will now begin. Finally, with a slow, reverent motion, the artisan carries the stoneware jar back to its designated place on the unvarnished cedar shelf. He places it down on a fresh square of indigo silk, ensuring that it is positioned in a way that allows the air to circulate freely around the repaired area. As his hands withdraw, they linger for a fraction of a second in the air, a silent gesture of blessing or release. The task for this evening is complete, yet the work continues invisibly, silently in the dark. The lacquer will now begin its long, slow conversation with the moisture in the room, hardening molecule by molecule into a bond that is stronger than the stone itself. The artisan turns back to his workbench, his movements remaining slow and purposeful as he begins to clean his tools. He wipes the spatulas with a cloth lightly scented with rapeseed oil, removing every trace of the sticky resin before it has a chance to set. Each tool is returned to its specific place on the bamboo rack, arranged with a geometric precision that mirrors the order of his mind. The room feels even more still now, the heavy air settling back into a state of absolute, undisturbed equilibrium. The distant temple bell has long since fallen silent, leaving only the faint rhythmic crackle of the oil lamp and the soft background hum of the sleeping garden. You feel a profound sense of completion and peace washing over you, a realization that in this small earthen room, the broken is being made whole, and the forgotten is being remembered, one slow, deliberate breath at a time. The artisan has retreated into the deeper shadows of the house, his soft, rhythmic footsteps fading into the distance until the only sound remaining is the internal heartbeat of the Muro itself. Now, in this absolute solitude, the room begins to speak in a language of scent and subtle texture, revealing the invisible layers of history that have saturated its very bones. As you sit motionless on the woven tatami, the high humidity of the room seems to amplify your olfactory senses, pulling forward the deep, complex bouquet of the Muromachi era. The primary note is the heavy, resinous perfume of the urushi sap, which has a scent unlike anything in the modern world. It is sweet yet pungent, carrying a sharp, medicinal top note that tickles the back of the throat, followed immediately by a profound, grounding base of fermented plum, wet cedar bark, and the dark, hidden minerals of a mountain cavern. This fragrance is the soul of the room. It is the scent of preservation, a natural chemical signature that has seeped into the cedar shelves, the earthen walls, and even the silk cushions over decades of constant presence. It is a scent that demands patience, signaling to the brain that nothing here happens quickly, and that beauty is a slow, agonizingly beautiful distillation of years. Woven into this resinous foundation is the damp, cooling aroma of the earthen walls themselves. Because the walls are made of living clay and straw, they possess a distinct, mineral-rich smell that changes slightly with the shifting temperature of the night. It is the scent of a fresh rain shower hitting dry, sun-baked soil, a fragrance the Japanese call petrichor, though here it is more concentrated, more intimate. It carries the faint, dusty sweetness of the fermented rice straw that binds the clay together, a golden, cereal-like scent that reminds one of the vast golden rice paddies that stretch across the Kyoto plains beyond the city walls. This earthen aroma acts as a cooling balm to the sharpness of the lacquer, balancing the atmosphere and creating a sensory equilibrium that is incredibly conducive to deep, restorative rest. As you inhale, you can almost taste the dampness on your tongue, a clean, pure moisture that feels like drinking from a cold mountain spring. Every breath you take is a physical connection to the land of Japan, a communion with the very soil from which the artisan's house was raised and to which it will one day return. If you lean your head back and allow your gaze to travel upward, beyond the golden reach of the oil lamp, you can just make out the heavy, smoke-blackened rafters that support the roof of the Muro. These beams are massive trunks of red pine, hand-hewn with broad axes and secured with complex interlocking joinery that requires no iron nails. Over decades of small fires and the occasional use of charcoal braziers to maintain warmth during the bitter Kyoto winters, the wood has been coated in a fine, velvet-like layer of soot known as susu. This soot has turned the pine a deep, lustrous charcoal black, a color so dense it seems to absorb the very concept of light. The texture of these beams is rugged and powerful, the visible adze marks creating a rhythmic, undulating surface that speaks of the physical strength and labor required to build such a sanctuary. Occasionally, a microscopic particle of this ancient soot will detach itself from a beam, dancing invisibly down through the humid air like a tiny, dark star, eventually settling unnoticed upon the earthen floor. This slow vertical migration of dust is the only clock that matters here, a measurement of time that counts in centuries rather than seconds. Beneath these mighty rafters, the cedar shelves continue their silent watch over the curing ceramics. In the dim light, you notice that each shelf is slightly bowed in the center, a gentle, elegant curve earned from years of supporting the weight of heavy stoneware and porcelain. This curvature is not a flaw, but a graceful record of service, a physical manifestation of the passage of time. The wood grain on these shelves is particularly beautiful, The winter growth rings are dark and thin, while the summer rings are wide and pale, creating a hypnotic rippling pattern that looks like a topographical map of a distant mountainous island. In some places, a stray drop of lacquer has fallen onto the wood and hardened into a permanent dark gem, a tiny accidental fossil of a project completed long ago. These small dark droplets catch the flickering lamplight, shining with a dull, mysterious luster that draws the eye and invites the mind to wonder about the hands that placed them there. The shelves are a library of touch, holding the invisible fingerprints of apprentices who have since become masters, and masters who have long since passed into the realm of ancestors. In the corner of the room, standing partially obscured by a stack of drying wooden trays, is a large, glazed ceramic water jar known as a mizusashi. Its surface is a deep, swirling cobalt blue, textured with a thick, hare's fur glaze that seems to flow downward in frozen rivulets of cream and iron brown. The jar is filled to the brim with pure rainwater, and because the air in the Muro is so still, the surface of the water has become a perfect, unmoving mirror. It reflects the tiny orange teardrop of the oil lamp's flame with such clarity that it looks like a second sun burning in a dark subterranean sky. Every few minutes, a single heavy drop of condensation forms on the underside of a cedar shelf above and falls into the jar, plink. The sound is incredibly sharp and resonant, a liquid chime that echoes off the earthen walls and sends a series of perfect concentric ripples moving slowly toward the edge of the blue ceramic. You watch these ripples as they expand, their movement so smooth and effortless that it feels hypnotic. They represent the only movement in this frozen world, a gentle reminder that even in the most profound stillness, there is a quiet, underlying pulse of life. The shadows in the room have now deepened into a rich, impenetrable ebony, leaving only the central workbench and the nearest shelf visible in the soft amber glow. This narrowing of the visual field serves to sharpen your other senses even further. You become aware of the subtle temperature gradients in the room, the warmth radiating from the small bronze lamp, the cool draft near the earthen floor, and the heavy, humid heat that hangs suspended near the ceiling. You can feel the moisture in the air settling on your eyelashes and the backs of your hands, a delicate gossamer weight that feels like being touched by 1,000 invisible feathers. This is the embrace of the Muro, a physical sensation of being held, protected, and nurtured by the environment itself. It is a feeling of total safety, of being tucked away in a secret pocket of history, where the troubles of the world cannot find you. As the night progresses toward its deepest point, the Muro seems to grow even quieter, if such a thing is possible. The distant sounds of the city, the bark of a stray dog, the rustle of the wind in the bamboo have all but disappeared, leaving a silence so profound it has a physical weight. In this silence, your mind begins to drift, untethered from the demands of logic and the constraints of the present. You find yourself imagining the lives of the vessels on the shelves, the grand ceremonies they once graced, the humble kitchens they served, and the moment of sudden violent impact that brought them here to be healed. You realize that the kintsugi process is not just about fixing a pot, it is about honoring the struggle, the breakage, and the survival. It is a philosophy that whispers to you in the dark, telling you that your own scars, your own fractures, and your own history are not things to be hidden, but things to be illuminated with gold. The room becomes a temple of resilience, and the humid, resin-scented air becomes an incense of peace, carrying you further and further away from the shore of wakefulness into the vast calm sea of a dreamless ancient sleep. While the artisan rests, the Muro continues its silent, invisible labor, but our awareness now shifts slightly to the soft, textile landscape that populates this sanctuary of repair. We begin to focus on the various cloths and silken wraps that play an indispensable role in the life of the kintsugi master. Resting on the corner of the heavy Zelkova workbench is a stack of small square cloths known as furoshiki, used for transporting delicate ceramics or covering vessels to protect them from stray dust motes. These cloths are made of hand-loomed indigo-dyed cotton, a fabric that has been washed so many hundreds of times that the initial sharp stiffness of the fibers has surrendered to a state of absolute buttery softness. If you were to press your cheek against this fabric, it would feel as gentle as a summer cloud. The indigo color is not uniform. It is a living gradient of blues, ranging from the deep midnight hue of the ocean's depths to a pale, ethereal sky blue, where the fabric has been repeatedly folded and handled. The scent of these cloths is a comforting mixture of fermented indigo plant, wood smoke, and the faint, clean smell of sun-dried thread. Each cloth is a map of labor, with tiny rhythmic sashiko stitches in white thread reinforcing the edges, small geometric crosses that look like a constellation of stars scattered across a dark blue sky. Beyond the cotton cloths, tucked into a specialized cedar box, are the remnants of old silk kimonos repurposed into protective cushions for the most valuable tea bowls. These silks are masterpieces of the Muromachi weaver's art, featuring subtle tone-on-tone patterns of flowing water, stylized pine needles, or the delicate silhouettes of cranes in flight. In the flickering amber light of the sesame oil lamp, the silk possesses a shifting, iridescent quality that seems to move even when the air is perfectly still. The texture is incredibly fine, a microscopic grid of silkworm threads that feels cool and liquid smooth to the touch, yet possesses a surprising resilient strength. These silk scraps act as the final barrier between the fragile, repaired ceramic and the hard wooden shelves, providing a luxurious, yielding bed that prevents even the slightest vibration from disturbing the curing lacquer. There is something profoundly moving about the intersection of these two arts, the weaver's craft and the lacquer master's skill coming together in the dark to protect a broken object. It represents a culture of absolute care, where every material, no matter how small or recycled, is treated with a level of reverence that borders on the sacred. We spend a long, meditative moment focusing on a single thread that has come loose from the edge of an indigo wrap. In the humid air of the Muro, this tiny fiber does not hang limp. It curls and sways with the almost imperceptible thermal currents created by the oil lamp. It is a microscopic dancer in a theatre of shadows. You can see the individual twists of the hand-spun yarn, the slight irregularities where the spinner's fingers applied more or less pressure, making the thread a tangible record of a human heartbeat from years ago. This level of micro-detail is the true essence of the 15th century. Nothing is mass-produced, nothing is identical, and therefore everything possesses a soul. The thread is a bridge between the person who grew the cotton, the person who dyed it in the indigo vat, and the artisan who now uses it to cradle a wounded bowl. As you watch the thread's slow, hypnotic dance, you feel the interconnectedness of all things, a realization that your own presence in this room is part of a much larger, slower tapestry of human existence. Moving our attention away from the textiles, we notice a small, flat stone bowl resting on the floor near the workbench, containing a fine grey powder. This is tonoko, a specialized clay powder made from weathered volcanic rock, which the artisan mixes with lacquer to create his foundational pastes. In its dry state, the powder is as fine as silk, possessing a soft matte texture that seems to swallow the light. If you were to run a finger through it, the sensation would be incredibly light and ephemeral, like touching the very essence of dust itself. Next to the stone bowl sits a small bamboo whisk, its tines so thin they look like the eyelashes of a forest spirit. This whisk is used to blend the powder and the resin into a perfectly smooth, bubble-free slurry. The artisan's workspace is a laboratory of natural elements, earth, water, wood, and sap, all working in concert to defy the passage of time and the inevitability of decay. The room is a testament to the belief that with enough patience and the right materials, nothing is ever truly lost. As the night deepens, the humidity in the room seems to settle into a thick, rhythmic pulse. You can hear the very faint, rhythmic expansion of the wooden shelves as they drink in the moisture, a sound so subtle it is almost more of a feeling than a noise. It is a slow wooden creak that happens perhaps once every hour, a punctuation mark in the long sentence of the night. The air feels increasingly heavy, but it is a weight that brings comfort rather than oppression. It is the weight of a heavy velvet curtain being drawn across the window of the soul, shutting out the noise of the world and inviting the silence of the heart. You find yourself focusing on the rhythmic flickering of the oil lamp's flame. The teardrop of fire is a vibrant orange at its center, fading into a pale, translucent yellow at the edges, with a tiny dancing cap of blue at the very bottom of the wick. The flame sways gently, as if it were breathing in unison with the room, casting a warm, protective glow over the workbench and the sleeping tools. In this state of deep sensory immersion, you begin to perceive the spirit of the objects around you. The tools are not just cold metal and wood, they are extensions of the artisan's will imbued with the energy of thousands of hours of focused labor. The ceramic bowls are not just clay and glaze, they are vessels of memory, holding the echoes of the tea ceremonies they have witnessed and the hands that have held them in moments of grief or joy. The kintsugi repair itself is a form of storytelling where the gold line acts as a shining narrative of what happened to the bowl and how it survived. This realization brings a profound sense of peace. You are not just observing a craft, you are witnessing an act of love and redemption. The room becomes a sanctuary where the brokenness of the world is not hidden away in shame, but is brought into the light, treated with the utmost care, and transformed into something more precious than it was when it was new. As your eyelids grow heavy and the amber light begins to blur, the boundaries between your physical self and the atmosphere of the Muro begin to dissolve. You feel as if you're becoming part of the shadows, part of the damp earthen walls, and part of the slow curing process of the lacquer. There is no need to think, no need to act, and no need to be anywhere else. You are safely anchored in the year 1460, wrapped in the scent of cedar and resin, lulled by the distant phantom resonance of the temple bell. The world of the future, with its lights, its speeds, and its noise, is a million miles away, a faint and fading dream. Here, in the heart of the Muromachi night, there is only the stillness, the gold, and the long, slow journey toward a deep and restorative sleep. The darkness is not empty. It is full of the quiet presence of history, a gentle maternal force that tucks you in and whispers that it is finally time to let go. As the night deepens within the Muro, the quality of the darkness itself undergoes a subtle, almost imperceptible transformation. It is no longer a simple absence of light, but a thick, layered, and three-dimensional presence that seems to fill every cubic inch of the room with a sense of ancient mystery. We turn our quiet attention toward the rhythmic geometry of the ceiling and the upper reaches of the earthen walls, where the shadows play a slow, hypnotic game of hide-and-seek with the flickering light of the sesame oil lamp. High above the artisan's workbench, the roof structure is a masterpiece of functional aesthetics. The heavy, dark pine rafters are intersected by a series of thinner, horizontal bamboo poles known as shizuke, which serve to support the thick layers of thatch and tile above. These bamboo poles are a deep, smoky amber color, having been seasoned over decades by the rising warmth and the faint resinous vapors of the curing lacquer. If you were to look closely at the texture of these poles, you would see the delicate vertical grain of the bamboo fibers, interrupted periodically by the characteristic swollen nodes of the stalk, each one sanded smooth and polished by the passage of time. These bamboo supports are lashed to the main rafters with an intricate rhythmic system of black hemp cord, tied in traditional knots that resemble the interlocking petals of a dark flower. The shadows cast by these knots onto the sloped ceiling are elongated and distorted, stretching across the dark wood like the many-legged creatures of a forgotten folklore. As the oil lamp's flame dances in the slight thermal currents of the room, these shadows appear to move with a slow, deliberate life of their own. They sway back and forth in a gentle, rhythmic cadence that mimics the swaying of trees in a distant forest or the movement of seaweed in a deep tidal pool. This constant, silent motion is incredibly soothing to the tired mind, providing a soft, visual anchor that requires no thought or analysis. You find yourself tracing the path of a single shadow as it glides across a rafter, disappearing into the velvet gloom of a corner before reappearing as the flame recovers its strength. This is the dance of the dim, a visual lullaby that has been played out in this room for over 100 years. The air in the upper reaches of the Muro is slightly warmer and even more saturated with moisture than the air near the floor. Here the scent of the urushi lacquer is more concentrated, mixing with the dry, grassy aroma of the bamboo and the faint, lingering scent of the wood smoke that has permeated the thatch over many seasons. This olfactory layering creates a sense of profound depth and history. You're breathing in the accumulated essence of the Muromachi period, a time when the boundary between the natural world and the human spirit was as thin as a sheet of washi paper. Every inhalation feels like a slow descent into a cool, deep well of peace. You can almost feel the moisture from the air settling onto your skin, a delicate, weightless dew that cools your forehead and relaxes the tiny muscles around your eyes. The humidity acts as a physical barrier against the intrusions of the modern world, creating a localized pocket of time where only the present, sensory moment exists. Resting on a high, recessed ledge near the ventilation grate is a small, forgotten object, a simple, hand-carved wooden whistle, likely made by an apprentice in a moment of quiet reflection. It is carved from a single piece of light willow wood, its surface now darkened by the same atmospheric patina that coats everything in this room. The whistle sits in absolute silence, yet it carries the voice of the past within its hollow center. It is a reminder that this room, while a place of professional labor, is also a home, a place where humans have lived, dreamed, and found moments of play amidst the serious work of restoration. The presence of such a small, humble object adds a layer of warmth to the sanctuary, making it feel less like a museum and more like a living, breathing part of a family's lineage. You imagine the soft, fluting sound the whistle might make, a clean, woody note that would drift out through the bamboo grate and lose itself in the vast starlit sky over Kyoto. Turning our gaze back down toward the floor, we notice the transition between the earthen ground and the raised wooden dais where the tatami mat rests. The edge of the wooden platform is made of dark, heavy oak, polished to a high shine by the friction of hands and feet. In the low light, this polished edge acts as a dark mirror, reflecting the golden glow of the oil lamp in a long, shimmering line of light that marks the boundary between the work area and the resting area. This line of light is incredibly sharp and clear, providing a sense of order and balance to the room. It reminds us that in the world of kintsugi, boundaries are important. The boundary between the broken and the whole, the boundary between the lacquer and the ceramic, and the boundary between the effort of the day and the rest of the night. You find yourself staring at this golden line, letting it simplify your vision, until the entire room is reduced to a single glowing horizon of light and shadow. Near the base of the workbench, tucked away from the main path, is a small woven bamboo basket used for holding scrap pieces of silk and hemp. The weave of the basket is a complex hexagonal pattern known as kagome, which creates a rhythmic series of star-shaped openings in the structure. Even in the dim light, the geometry of the basket is striking, its natural bamboo fibers casting a complex latticed shadow onto the dark earth below. The basket is nearly full, its contents a soft, chaotic mound of indigo, cream, and crimson fabric. These scraps are the ghosts of past repairs, each one having played a small but vital role in the cleaning or protection of a precious vessel. The texture of the woven bamboo is rough and organic, a tactile contrast to the smoothness of the silk within. As the air moves through the room, the edges of the fabric scraps flutter almost imperceptibly, a soft, dry rustle that is barely audible above the rhythmic crackle of the oil lamp. The room feels as though it is sighing, a long, slow release of the day's tension. You are now so deeply immersed in the atmosphere of the Muro that the outside world has ceased to be even a memory. There is no tomorrow, no yesterday, only the amber light, the scent of resin, and the comforting, heavy embrace of the humidity. The walls of the room, with their thick layers of mounting clay, seem to pulse with a slow geological heartbeat, a rhythm that is millions of years old. You are tucked safely inside this heartbeat, a tiny, transient spark of consciousness resting in the massive, enduring cradle of history. The silence here is not empty. It is a full silence, packed with the weight of tradition, the integrity of craftsmanship, and the profound beauty of things that have been broken and made beautiful again. As you prepare to drift even further into the realm of sleep, you notice a single, microscopic spark within the oil lamp's flame. A tiny glowing ember of carbon that rises from the wick and disappears into the dark. It is a fleeting, beautiful moment of transition, a reminder of the delicate balance of fire and air that sustains the light in this room. You let your breath slow down even further, matching the slow, rhythmic flickering of the lamp. Your body feels heavy and warm, sinking into the soft, yielding fibers of the tatami mat. The scent of the agusa grass rises up to meet you, a dry, nostalgic fragrance that smells of summer fields and peaceful afternoons. You are home, you are safe, you are part of the story of this room, a silent witness to the golden repair of the world. The darkness is a soft blanket, the humidity is a warm embrace, and the history of the Muromachi night is a lullaby that will carry you through the hours of the dark and into the light of a new peaceful dawn. We shift our focus now to a specific heavy vessel resting on the central workbench, a large lacquered mixing bowl made of seasoned cherry wood known as a makiwan. This bowl is the literal heart of the workshop's daily alchemy, the place where the raw, temperamental sap of the lacquer tree is transformed into the divine adhesive of the kintsugi art. The bowl is remarkably thick. In it to protestits rip The exterior of the cherry wood has been finished in a simple matted black lacquer that has, over the generations, developed a complex network of microscopic cracks and a soft clouded patina that looks like the surface of a frozen lake at dawn. Inside, however, the bowl is stained with a chaotic, beautiful history of colors, layer upon layer of dried urushi. Deep cinnabar reds, obsidian blacks, and earthy ochres have built up over the years, creating a smooth, multicolored topography that feels like polished gemstone to the touch. This bowl is a living record of every repair ever conducted in this Muro, a silent library of the thousands of broken objects that have found their way to this bench to be healed. The artisan has left a small amount of fresh, raw kyorushi in the bottom of the bowl, and we spend a long hypnotic period observing its peculiar mesmerizing behavior in the dim amber light. This raw lacquer is a thick, viscous and translucent liquid possessing the deep golden brown hue of forest honey or ancient fossilized amber. As the tiny flame of the oil lamp flickers, the light catches the surface of the liquid, reflecting a distorted, shimmering version of the room back at us. Because the lacquer is so dense, it does not ripple easily like water. Instead, it moves with a slow, majestic inertia, its surface tension creating a perfect, unbreaking mirror. If you were to lean in very close, the scent of the fresh sap would become overwhelming in its complexity. It is a powerful primal fragrance that smells of the very lifeblood of the forest, a sharp, acidic tang of tannic acid mixed with the deep, heavy sweetness of rotting leaves and the cold, metallic scent of rain-drenched minerals. This is the scent of nature's own survival mechanism, for the lacquer tree produces this sap specifically to heal its own bark when it is wounded. Here in the Muro, that same biological impulse is harnessed to heal the wounds of human history. Watching the lacquer in the bowl, we begin to understand the soul of the Muromachi artisan's relationship with his materials. He does not view this sap as a mere chemical substance to be manipulated, but as a living, breathing partner in a slow, cooperative dance. The urushi is notoriously difficult to work with. It is toxic to the touch for the uninitiated, causing a fierce, itchy rash, and it refuses to dry in the way any other substance does. It is a paradox. It requires darkness to harden, and it requires the very moisture of the air to become solid. This is why the Muro is so humid, so damp, and so hidden. The lacquer is a creature of the shadows and the mist. As you watch the liquid in the bowl, you can almost see it breathing, absorbing the suspended water molecules from the heavy air, beginning the long, invisible process of polymerization. It is an alchemy that requires no fire, no forge, and no violence, only the silent, steady passage of time and the patient presence of the humidity. The bowl becomes a focal point for your own relaxation, its dark, swirling depths inviting you to let go of the rigid, fast-paced structures of the modern world and sink into the slow, organic rhythms of the natural world. Beside the mixing bowl lies a small, flat piece of translucent horn, likely from a water buffalo which the artisan uses to scrape the last remnants of the precious resin from the wood. The horn is a pale yellowish-white colour, with dark brown streaks running through it like the veins of a leaf. It has been carved into a thin, flexible blade, its edges worn down to a translucent sharpness through years of friction. The light passes through the horn, making it glow with a soft, milky radiance that contrasts beautifully with the dark, heavy wood of the workbench. There is a profound beauty in these organic tools: wood, horn, bamboo, and silk, all derived from the living world, all working together to restore objects made of earth and fire. The room is a closed loop of natural harmony, where nothing is wasted and everything has a purpose. Even the small dried skins of lacquer that are occasionally peeled from the bowl are saved, to be ground down and used as a strengthening filler for future repairs. It is a philosophy of total integration, a way of living that honors the cycle of birth, decay, and rebirth. As we continue our meditation on the workbench, our eyes drift to a small lidded jar made of heavy green celadon, which holds the nori urushi, a mixture of lacquer and a glue made from finely simmered glutinous rice. This mixture is used for the initial joining of the largest shards of a broken vessel. The celadon jar is a masterpiece of the Song dynasty style, its glaze a pale, misty seafoam green that seems to hold a pool of cool water within its depths. The surface is covered in a delicate crackle pattern, a deliberate artistic choice that mimics the very fractures the artisan spends his life repairing. The lid of the jar is topped with a tiny, hand-carved lion dog, or komenu, who sits in eternal, silent vigil over the precious glue within. The presence of this Chinese-style ceramic in a Japanese workshop is a reminder of the vast trade networks of the 15th century, of the ships that braved the stormy seas to bring treasures from the mainland to the hidden valleys of Kyoto. It adds a sense of worldliness and cultural depth to this small earthen room, connecting this quiet artisan to a global history of beauty and craft. The humidity in the room has now reached its peak, and the air feels almost like a liquid, a warm and nourishing sea that supports your body and mind. You feel as though you are floating, suspended in a state between wakefulness and sleep, where the sounds and smells of the Muro are the only reality. The rhythmic crackle of the oil lamp has slowed down, the wick having charred into a long, curling flower of carbon that glows with a deep, pulsing red. This flower is considered a sign of good luck by the artisan, a small blessing from the fire for the work being done in the dark. You watch the red glow as it expands and contracts, a tiny glowing heart beating in the center of the darkness. It is the only point of heat in the room, and its warmth seems to radiate outward, touching your face and hands with a gentle, flickering kiss. Looking toward the corner, we see the stack of drying trays, or euro, where the smaller repaired items are placed to cure. These trays are made of lightweight cedar, with high sides to protect the contents from any sudden drafts. Each tray is a miniature world of its own. One might hold a series of small sake cups, each with a single dark line of lacquer tracing a crack. Another might hold a set of lacquered hair combs being restored for a noblewoman of the imperial court. The trays are stacked in a staggered fashion, allowing the heavy, humid air to flow freely between them. This vertical forest of cedar and ceramic is a testament to the artisan's productivity and his role in the community. He is the one who mends the broken threads of the city's domestic life, ensuring that the objects of the past can continue to be used and loved in the future. The sight of these stacked trays is incredibly comforting. It is the sight of order, of care, and of the steady, quiet progress of a life dedicated to a single beautiful purpose. As the final embers of your conscious thought begin to fade, the image of the lacquer bowl with its dark, swirling history and its promise of healing remains etched in your mind. It becomes a symbol for your own internal restoration. Just as the artisan uses the resin to join the shattered pieces of a bowl, the silence and the darkness of this night are joining the scattered pieces of your own tired mind, knitting them back together into a whole, peaceful state. You are being cured in the humidity of history, hardened into a stronger, more resilient version of yourself through the simple act of resting. The scent of the urushi, the texture of the cherry wood, and the glow of the celadon jar are all parts of a grand sensory lullaby that is now drawing the curtain on your day. You are ready to let go. You are ready to sink into the deep, dark, and golden sleep of the Muro, where the broken is made beautiful and the night is a sanctuary of infinite peace. In the profound velvet stillness of the Muro, our attention is now drawn to a corner of the workbench where the artisan's most fundamental tools for preparation lie. Before the lacquer can be applied and before the gold can dance across a seam, the surfaces of the broken objects must often be subtly refined. Here, resting on a small, damp wooden stand, is a trio of natural whetstones or toshi sourced from the famous quarries of the northern Kyoto mountains. These stones are not cold industrial blocks, they are ancient sedimentary treasures, each possessing a unique grit, color, and personality. The first is a coarse, speckled grey stone, its surface rugged and porous, used for the initial levelling of a jagged ceramic edge. The second is a mid-grit stone of a soft, muddy ochre hue which feels like a piece of dense velvet under the fingers. But the most precious is the uchigumori stone, a finishing whetstone of an ethereal pale lavender grey, so fine and smooth that it feels almost like a piece of compressed silk. Beside these stones sits a small, shallow cedar trough filled with cool, clear water. Throughout the day, the artisan has used this water to keep the stones lubricated, and now, in the quiet of the night, the surface of the water has become a dark, unblinking eye reflecting the rafters above. Thin, ghostly film of stone slurry, the tujiru has settled at the bottom of the trough, a fine silt of powdered mountain rock that represents the literal dust of time created by his labor. If you were to dip your finger into this water, it would feel incredibly soft and mineral-rich, carrying the ancient cold scent of the deep earth. The interaction between the steel of a blade and the grit of the stone creates a very specific sensory world. It is a world of extreme precision, where a fraction of a millimeter is the difference between a perfect fit and a clumsy repair. Even though the artisan is now resting, the presence of these stones reminds us of the discipline required to master the kintsugi path. The hours of repetitive, rhythmic movement that grind away not only the imperfections of the object, but also the impatience of the craftsman's soul. Resting atop the lavender finishing stone is a small specialized carving knife known as a kiwakata. Its handle is made of dark, oil-rubbed ebony, shaped perfectly to fit the hollow of a palm, and its blade is a sliver of high-carbon steel, laminated by a master swordsmith. The edge of this blade is so unimaginably sharp that it does not reflect the light so much as it seems to slice through the very shadows of the room. In the dim, amber glow of the oil lamp, the harmon or temperament line of the steel is visible. a wavy, misty pattern that looks like the crest of a breaking wave on a stormy sea. This knife is used to trim the hardened lacquer with microscopic accuracy, ensuring that the repair line remains flush with the original surface of the bowl. The artisan treats this knife with the reverence one might show a sacred relic, cleaning it with a piece of soft deer hide and a drop of camellia oil before setting it down for the night. The scent of the camellia oil, light, floral, and slightly nutty, lingers in this corner of the workbench, providing a delicate counterpoint to the heavy, resinous aroma of the urushi. We spend a long, hypnotic moment focusing on the texture of the ebony handle. Under the magnifying gaze of our historical immersion, we can see the incredibly tight, straight grain of the tropical wood, which has been polished by the friction of the artisan's hand over 30 years. There are small, shallow indentations where his thumb and forefinger naturally rest, a physical record of a lifetime of focused pressure. This is the humanity of the tool. It has been shaped by the man just as much as it has shaped the wood and lacquer. As the humidity in the room rises, the wood of the handle swells ever so slightly, tightening the bond between the steel tang and the ebony grip. The tool is alive in the same way the Muro is alive, responding to the atmospheric conditions of the night with its own subtle internal movements. You feel a sense of profound stability emanating from this corner of the bench, a feeling that everything is in its proper place, and that the tools are ready and waiting for the first light of dawn. Further back on the workbench, partially obscured by the shadows of a large drying cabinet, is a collection of small natural sponges and bundles of dried horsetail or takusa. These stalks of horsetail are nature's own sandpaper, their ribbed, silica-rich surfaces providing a gentle organic abrasive for polishing the foundational layers of the kintsugi repair. The bundles are tied together with thin strips of split bamboo, looking like miniature bundles of wheat gathered from a fairy tale field. In the dim light, the takusa has a pale, straw-like color and a dry, rustling texture. When used, it produces a very specific hushing sound, a soft shh, shh, that is the background music of the kintsugi workshop. This sound is a lullaby of refinement, a reminder that beauty is often achieved through the slow, gentle removal of the unnecessary rather than the addition of the complex. The room is filled with these quiet materials, things that grow in the mountains and by the rivers, brought here to serve the noble purpose of restoration. As you sit on the tatami, the weight of the night seems to press more firmly against the walls of the Muro. The humidity has reached a state of perfect saturation, where the air feels thick enough to touch. You find yourself focusing on the rhythmic, almost imperceptible dripping of water from a small stone basin in the garden outside, a sound that filters through the bamboo grate like a liquid metronome, drip, drip, drip. Each drop marks a moment of the Muromachi night, a tiny increment of time that is being swallowed by the vast, silent history of Kyoto. The sound is incredibly grounding, pulling your awareness down into the cool, damp earth beneath the floorboards. You imagine the roots of the trees outside drinking in the evening rain and the moss spreading its emerald fingers across the stones. You are part of this ecosystem of growth and stillness, tucked safely inside the earthen womb of the Muro. The oil lamp flickers once, twice, as a tiny pocket of air moves through the room. The shadows of the whetstones stretch across the floor, looking like the silhouettes of distant, slumbering mountains. This visual connection to the landscape of Japan is not accidental. The kintsugi art is deeply rooted in the geography of the land, using its minerals, its plants, and its climate to heal the objects of its people. You feel a sense of profound gratitude for this connection, a feeling of being anchored to something much larger and more enduring than the fleeting concerns of a single human life. The whetstone, the blade, the horsetail, and the water. They are the silent witnesses to the artisan's devotion, and they are now your companions in the journey towards sleep. The darkness is now complete, save for the tiny pulsing heart of the oil lamp. Your eyes close naturally, the image of the lavender whetstone and the ebony knife fading into a soft grey mist. You can still smell the camellia oil and the damp stone, a sensory trail that guides you deeper into the forest of dreams. The room is a sanctuary of focus, but now it has become a sanctuary of release, There is no more refining to be done, no more edges to sharpen, and no more lacquer to trim. The work is resting, the tools are resting, and you too are finally permitted to surrender to the heavy golden embrace of the night. The Muromachi dusk has turned into a deep protective midnight, and the silence of the Muro is a promise of a peaceful, undisturbed rest that will last until the sun once again touches the paper screens of the garden. In the quietest corner of the Muro, standing tall and resolute against the earthen wall, is the furo, the specialized drying cabinet that acts as the final sacred womb for the curing lacquer. This cabinet is a marvel of traditional functional design, constructed entirely from the thick aromatic planks of Japanese cedar or shoji. Unlike the open shelves we observed earlier, the furo is a completely enclosed environment designed to trap and concentrate the humidity even more intensely than the room itself. The wood of the cabinet is dark and heavy, saturated with decades of moisture and the invisible vapors of the urushi sap. The doors of the cabinet are precision-fitted, sliding with a hushed, airtight thump that seals the interior off from the rest of the world. In the dim amber glow of the oil lamp, the grain of the cedar doors looks like the flowing currents of a deep midnight river, the swirling knots of the wood appearing as dark, unblinking eyes that have watched over thousands of restorations. Inside this cabinet, the atmosphere is even thicker and more humid than the room surrounding it. It is a space of absolute pressurized stillness. Small, shallow wooden trays are stacked within, each holding a vessel that has reached the critical stage of its repair. Here, the temperature and moisture are so perfectly balanced that the lacquer begins its final, miraculous transformation from a sticky golden liquid into a hard, crystalline solid. This is the stage where the urushiol, the active component of the sap, polymerizes, linking its molecules together into a chain that is virtually indestructible. It is a slow, silent birth happening in the absolute darkness. If you were to press your ear against the cedar wood of the cabinet, you might imagine you could hear the microscopic snapping of these molecular bonds, a tiny rhythmic crackling that sounds like the breaking of ice on a pond in early spring. The cabinet is not just a piece of furniture, it is a time machine slowing down the world until the only thing that matters is the patient hardening of the resin. The scent inside the furo is incredibly intense, a concentrated essence of the forest. It is an intoxicating mix of the sweet, peppery aroma of the cedar and the deep, slightly acidic tang of the curing lacquer. This smell is the very definition of patience in olfactory form. It is a fragrance that anchors the soul, pulling the mind away from the distractions of the senses and into a state of deep internal focus. You find yourself breathing in this scent, letting it fill your lungs and your mind until you feel as though you too are being cured within the protective walls of the Muro. The humidity acts as a heavy, warm blanket that relaxes every nerve, smoothing out the jagged edges of your thoughts just as the artisan smooths the edges of his ceramics. You are being held in a state of suspended animation, safe from the passage of time and the pressures of existence. On the bottom shelf of the furo, resting on a bed of damp hemp cloth, is a collection of small unglazed ceramic tiles used for testing the consistency of the lacquer. Each tile is covered in a series of thin dark strokes ranging from a pale tan to a deep obsidian black. These are the signatures of the different batches of urushi used by the artisan to determine the exact moment when the resin is ready for the gold. The texture of these tiles is rough and earthy, providing a stark contrast to the glass-like smoothness of the cured lacquer. You spend a long meditative moment focusing on a single stroke of black lacquer on one of the tiles. In the flickering light, it looks like a piece of the night sky has been captured and frozen onto the clay. The surface of the lacquer is so reflective that it catches the tiny orange spark of the oil lamp, holding it like a precious glowing ember in the center of the dark. Beside the test tiles sits a small lidded box made of paulownia wood, containing the artisan's collection of fine grit charcoal or sumi. This charcoal, made from the wood of the camellia tree, is used to sand the hardened lacquer between layers. It is incredibly lightweight and porous, feeling almost like a piece of solidified smoke in the hand. The charcoal is used with water to create a fine, black slurry that gently grinds away any microscopic imperfections, leaving the surface perfectly level and ready for the next application. The process of sanding with charcoal is a ritual of absolute refinement, a repetitive, rhythmic movement that requires a touch as light as a feather. The sound it makes, a soft, wet hush-hush, is one of the most iconic sounds of the Kintsugi workshop. It is a sound that signifies the transition from the raw to the refined, from the broken to the beautiful. In the silence of the night, you can almost hear the ghostly echo of this sound, a rhythmic pulse that lulls you deeper into your state of relaxation. The Furo cabinet also houses the artisan's most delicate finishing materials. Tucked into a small velvet-lined drawer at the top are several small translucent pouches of shihogami, an incredibly thin and strong paper made from the fibers of the gampi tree. This paper is used to strain the lacquer, removing even the smallest particle of dust or grit that might mar the final finish. The paper is so thin that it is almost invisible, yet it possesses a resilience that is staggering. If you were to hold a piece of it up to the light, you would see the long, elegant fibers of the bark woven together in a complex organic lattice that looks like the wing of a dragonfly. The presence of such a delicate material in the heavy, humid environment of the Muro is a reminder of the incredible range of textures and scales that the Kintsugi master must navigate. He moves between the massive rafters of the roof and the microscopic fibers of the paper, between the heavy earth of the walls and the weightless dust of the gold. As you sit on the tatami watching the shadows of the Furo cabinet stretch across the floor, you feel a sense of profound completion. The cabinet represents the final stage of the journey, the point where the artisan's labor ends and the work of nature begins. It is a place of surrender, where the human hand lets go and allows the elements to complete the task. This realization brings a deep sense of peace to your own mind. You realize that you too are at a point of surrender. The efforts of your day are over. The work of your mind is done, and it is now time to let the natural rhythms of sleep take over. The Muro is a safe place to let go, a sanctuary where you can trust that everything is being taken care of and that the morning will find you whole and renewed. The oil lamp is burning low now, the pool of sesame oil nearly depleted. The flame has become a tiny blue-white bead of light that casts long, thin shadows against the cedar wood. The air in the room is perfectly still, the humidity having reached a state of absolute equilibrium. You can feel your heartbeat slowing down, matching the slow, rhythmic breathing of the room. The scent of the cedar and the lacquer is like a warm, fragrant embrace that pulls you down into the soft, yielding fibers of the tatami mat. Your eyes close, and the image of the dark, protective Furo cabinet is the last thing you see before the mists of sleep swallow you whole. You are tucked away in the heart of the 15th century, safe in the dark, safe in the humidity, safe in the long, golden silence of history. As we remain suspended in the heavy, humid atmosphere of the Muro, our senses drift toward a small, unassuming ceramic crock resting on a low wooden stool near the artisan's primary workspace. This vessel, glazed in a simple, earthy brown, holds one of the most humble yet vital components of the kintsugi process, the mugi urushi. This is the primary adhesive used to bridge the jagged gaps of a broken heart of clay, a masterful marriage of the forest and the field. To create it, the artisan has spent a significant portion of his afternoon meticulously kneading together raw urushi sap and a thick, translucent paste made from finely ground wheat flour and water. The resulting mixture is a dense, incredibly tacky, and slightly elastic substance that possesses a deep, malty fragrance, reminiscent of freshly baked bread cooling in a damp, shaded kitchen. This scent, so familiar and domestic, provides a comforting bridge between the sharp, medicinal air of the curing room and the everyday life of the city outside the earthen walls. We focus our meditative gaze on the texture of this adhesive. In the flickering amber light of the sesame oil lamp, the mugi urushi appears like a pool of dark liquid caramel, its surface holding the tiny, distorted reflection of the room with a stubborn, viscous grip. If you were to touch it, though you do not, for its bite is fierce, you would feel a resistance that speaks of immense structural integrity. It is an organic bond that does not simply sit on the surface of the ceramic, it seeks out the microscopic pores of the fired clay, weaving its resinous fingers deep into the very skeleton of the object. This is the hidden strength of the Muromachi craft, the realization that the most durable repairs are those that integrate themselves into the original material, becoming one with the substance they are meant to heal. The rice and wheat, staples of the Japanese diet, are here elevated to a higher purpose, lending their starchy resilience to the preservation of beauty. Beside the crock of wheat paste sits a small square board made of seasoned cypress, which the artisan uses as his mixing palette. The surface of the wood is covered in a beautiful chaotic topography of dried adhesive remnants from years of labour. There are ridges of dark, hardened lacquer that look like miniature mountain ranges and smooth, glassy plains of clear resin that catch the light like patches of black ice. Each layer represents a different story, a different broken bowl, and a different evening spent in this humid sanctuary. The artisan uses a small, flexible spatula made from the outer skin of a bamboo stalk to blend his mixtures on this board. The sound of the bamboo scraping against the cypress is a soft, rhythmic chirp, a tactile music that echoes the sound of the wind moving through the bamboo grove just beyond the garden wall. This sound is incredibly hypnotic, a repetitive acoustic pattern that helps to further dissolve the boundaries of your conscious mind. As the humidity in the room continues to circulate, the starch in the wheat paste begins its own slow chemical conversation with the moisture in the air. The mugi urushi is a living material, one that requires a delicate balance to reach its full potential. Too much moisture too quickly, and the bond will be brittle; too little, and it will never truly set. The artisan, through decades of sensory experience, knows exactly how to read the breath of the room, adjusting the ventilation grate high above to ensure the perfect curing environment. You find yourself admiring this level of silent expertise, a knowledge that is not found in books but is stored in the muscles, the skin, and the very bones of the craftsman. It is a testament to a time when humans lived in a state of absolute sensory attunement with their environment, moving in harmony with the seasons, the weather, and the materials of the earth. Moving our attention slightly to the left, we find a small lidded bamboo basket containing a supply of kokuso, a specialized filling material made from a mixture of lacquer, sawdust, and chopped hemp fibers. This material is used to fill larger losses where a piece of the original ceramic has been pulverized or lost to time. The kokuso has a much coarser, more fibrous texture than the smooth mugi urushi. It looks like dark, rich garden soil, and it carries a deep, woody aroma of cedar and hemp. When the artisan packs this material into a void, he is essentially rebuilding the body of the vessel, creating a new flesh to replace what was missing. This act of replacement is a profound metaphor for the Kintsugi philosophy, the acknowledgement that while the past cannot be fully restored to its original state, the gaps can be filled with something new, something strong, and something that carries the history of the repair within it. The room feels increasingly dense, as if the very air were becoming a part of the structural integrity of the Muro. You can feel the moisture settling on the fine hairs of your arms, a delicate gossamer weight that is both cooling and comforting. The scent of the wheat paste, the resin, and the damp cedar creates a thick olfactory cocoon that shields you from any thoughts of the future or the past. You are here, in the year 1460, resting on a tatami mat that has been seasoned by a century of quiet evenings. The world outside, the political intrigues of the shogunate, the bustling markets of Kyoto, the distant wars, all of it feels like a faint, irrelevant whisper. The only truth is the slow, silent curing of the lacquer and the rhythmic flickering of the oil lamp. In the corner of the workbench, a small, forgotten bowl of water used for cleaning spatulas has become a mirror for the night. Single tiny dust mote, illuminated by the lamp, drifts slowly down through the air, moving in a graceful spiraling path until it touches the surface of the water with a microscopic ripple. This event, so small it would be invisible in the noisy modern world, takes on the weight of a major occurrence in the absolute stillness of the Muro. You watch the ripple expand and fade, letting it take the last of your lingering anxieties with it. Your mind is becoming like that water, still dark and perfectly reflective. As the oil lamp begins to sputter, its flame growing smaller and more intensely blue, the shadows in the room deepen and soften. The edges of the workbench, the silhouettes of the drying trays, and the dark mass of the furo cabinet all begin to blur into a single cohesive tapestry of twilight. The scent of the mugi urushi grows fainter as the mixture begins to skin over, sealing its secrets within. You feel a profound sense of tiredness, but it is a good tiredness, the kind that comes from a day of meaningful observation and a spirit that has finally found its center. The heavy, humid embrace of the room is pulling you down toward the floor, toward the earth, toward the deep, dark roots of sleep. The artisan's presence is still felt in the room, a lingering energy of care and precision that makes the sanctuary feel inhabited and safe. You imagine him in the adjacent room, his own breathing slow and rhythmic, his mind at rest before the next day's labor. You are his silent guest, protected by his walls and lulled by his craft. The darkness is not a void, it is a presence, a soft velvet curtain that has been drawn specifically for you. The Muromachi night is a vast, starlit ocean, and the Muro is a sturdy, silent ship that is carrying you safely across the hours of the dark. Close your eyes now, let the scent of cedar and wheat be your guide, and surrender completely to the long, hypnotic and restorative sleep of history. As the night reaches its deepest, most profound stillness, our sensory journey turns toward a material that is often overlooked in the grand theater of the kintsugi process, yet one that embodies the very soul of Japanese craftsmanship, the washi paper. On a secondary, lower shelf of the artisan's workbench, nestled away from the direct amber glare of the oil lamp, lies a pristine stack of hand-pressed mulberry paper. Even in the dim light, the paper possesses a soft, ethereal luminescence, as if it has captured a fragment of the afternoon's milky fog and held it within its fibers. This is not the sterile, bleached paper of the industrial age. It is a living, breathing textile of the forest, created from the inner bark of the kozo bush, harvested by hand from the frost-covered slopes of the surrounding Kyoto hills. The texture of the paper is incredibly complex, a microscopic, chaotic landscape of long, translucent fibers that have been beaten, washed in icy river water and laid to rest on bamboo screens. In the heavy humidity of the Muro, the washi paper undergoes a subtle physical transformation. Unlike modern paper that might curl or grow brittle, this ancient material drinks in the moisture, becoming slightly more supple and heavy, its surface developing a texture that feels remarkably like soft, cool skin. The artisan uses this paper for a multitude of delicate tasks, to filter the raw urushi lacquer of its microscopic impurities, to create protective bandages for particularly fragile repairs, and to wipe away the finest, almost invisible traces of excess resin. If you were to lean in and listen with the absolute intensity that this silence demands, you might hear the incredibly faint, dry rustle of the paper as it adjusts to the humidity, a sound like the wings of a moth brushing against a silk screen. It is a sound of pure, unadulterated gentleness, a tactile whisper that reinforces the atmosphere of total, unwavering care that defines this sanctuary. One particular sheet of washi has been used to cover a small, shallow dish of red lacquer, protecting it from the wandering dust motes of the night. The paper is held in place by a single small river stone, a smooth, dark pebble of basalt that feels like a piece of the night sky made solid. The weight of the stone creates a series of soft, radiating creases in the paper, looking like the gentle ripples on a pond after a single raindrop has fallen. The contrast between the stark, unyielding weight of the stone and the fragile, translucent grace of the paper is a perfect visual representation of the Muromachi aesthetic. It is a balance of opposites, the heavy and the light, the permanent and the fleeting, the earth and the wind. You find yourself staring at this small arrangement, letting your mind drift into the microscopic world of the paper fibers, losing yourself in the intricate snowy white lattice that has survived through the centuries. Beyond its functional uses, the paper also carries a distinct, nostalgic fragrance that contributes to the olfactory symphony of the room. It is a clean, slightly sweet scent, reminiscent of wet wood, cold mountain air, and the faint earthy aroma of the starch used to bind the fibers. This scent acts as a refreshing top note to the heavy, resinous base of the urushi and the damp cedar, providing a sense of clarity and lightness to the air. Every breath you take in this room is a layered experience, a complex bouquet of natural history that speaks of the deep interconnectedness of the Japanese landscape. The paper is the voice of the mulberry grove, just as the lacquer is the voice of the forest and the clay is the voice of the mountain. You are surrounded by a choir of silent materials, all working in perfect rhythmic harmony to create a state of absolute restorative peace. In the corner of the workbench, there is a small wooden box containing lacquer-soaked paper scraps from earlier in the day. These scraps have been used to test the flow and consistency of a new batch of resin. As the lacquer on the paper cures in the damp air, it turns from a pale, translucent tan to a deep, lustrous brown, the color deepening with every passing hour of the night. The texture of these scraps has changed. They are no longer soft and yielding, but have become stiff and resilient, like pieces of ancient parchment or the shell of a beetle. The artisan will later examine these scraps under the first light of dawn to judge the health of the lacquer before proceeding with the final golden stages of the repair. Even these discarded fragments are treated with a certain level of respect, placed neatly in their box rather than being thrown away. In the Muro, there is no such thing as trash. There is only material in different stages of its life cycle. As you sit on the woven tatami mat, the silence of the paper seems to amplify the silence of your own mind. You realize that your thoughts have become like those long, intertwined fibers of the washi, slowing down, spreading out, and finding a state of quiet, structural integrity. The frantic, disconnected noise of modern thought cannot survive in this environment. It is filtered out by the heavy, humid air and the rhythmic presence of the tools. You are being pressed and dried by the night, your spirit becoming as clear and resilient as a sheet of handmade paper. The world outside, with its sharp edges and its glaring lights, feels like a distant, half-forgotten dream, while the soft, amber-lit reality of the Muro is the only thing that is truly real. The oil lamp's flame has now grown very long and thin, a golden needle of light that pierces the darkness with a steady, unwavering focus. The shadows of the paper stack stretch across the workbench, looking like the snowy peaks of a distant mountain range at twilight. This sense of vast internal landscape is a common experience in the Kintsugi sanctuary, despite the small enclosed nature of the room. The focus on micro-detail and natural materials creates a feeling of infinite space. You are not trapped in a room, you are exploring a universe of texture, scent, and history. The walls of the Muro do not confine you. They protect you, creating a safe harbor where your soul can expand and breathe without fear. The humidity has now reached a point of perfect velvet saturation. You can feel it as a gentle pressure against your eardrums, a soft oceanic hum that is the very sound of the night itself. The scent of the mulberry paper, the cedar, and the resin has merged into a single intoxicating fragrance that acts as a powerful, natural sedative. Your body feels incredibly light, yet firmly anchored to the earth, as if you were a fallen leaf resting on the surface of a still forest pool. The Muromachi dusk has fulfilled its promise, carrying you through the layers of the evening and delivering you to the doorstep of a deep, dreamless sleep. As the last glow of the oil lamp begins to fade, leaving the room in a state of soft charcoal grey twilight, you find yourself ready to surrender. There is no more to see, no more to hear, and no more to think. The paper is at rest, the lacquer is at rest, and the artisan is at rest. The work of the day has been transformed into the beauty of the night, and you are a part of that transformation. Close your eyes. Let the weightless scent of the washi be the last thing you remember, and sink into the profound golden and ancient silence of the Kyoto night. You are home. You are whole. You are finally beautifully at peace. As we drift further into the heart of this 15th century night, the physical objects of the Muro begin to transcend their material forms, becoming vessels for a much deeper, more ancient philosophy. We sit in the absolute humid stillness, and our minds turn toward the very essence of why this room exists. In the modern world you left behind, a break is often seen as a tragedy, a reason to discard, to replace, or to hide. But here, in the flickering amber glow of the Muromachi era, a fracture is viewed as a profound opportunity for a new kind of beauty. This is the realm of wabi-sabi, a worldview that finds a haunting, resonant grace in things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. The kintsugi repair is the physical manifestation of this wisdom. It does not attempt to disguise the damage or pretend that the vessel was never broken. Instead, it illuminates the history of the object, drawing the eye toward the scar with a line of pure radiant gold. It is a philosophy that whispers to us in the dark, reminding us that there is a specific, quiet dignity in survival. We focus our meditative gaze on a small stoneware tea bowl resting on the middle shelf, its repair nearly complete. The golden seam traces a jagged path across the side of the bowl, looking like a river of light flowing through a dark, rugged canyon. This line represents a moment of crisis, the sudden impact, the shattering of the clay, the silence that followed, but it also represents the hundreds of hours of patient labor that followed that crisis. The gold does not hide the break. It celebrates the fact that the bowl was worth the effort of mending. As you watch the soft lamplight play across the metallic surface, you begin to realize that the repaired bowl is in many ways more valuable and more spiritually significant than the perfect bowl ever was. It has been through the fire of experience, it has been broken, and it has been made whole again by the human hand and the spirit of nature. It possesses a soul that a brand new object simply cannot claim, a narrative of resilience that speaks to the very core of the human condition. The heavy resin-scented air of the Muro seems to carry this philosophy into your very lungs. With every slow, rhythmic breath, you are inhaling the idea that your own life, with all its fractures and forgotten hurts, is also a candidate for a golden repair. We all carry scars, both visible and invisible, from the moments when the world was less than kind. In the silence of this historical sanctuary, those scars no longer feel like failures. They feel like the foundational lines of a masterpiece. You find yourself relaxing into this realization, letting the tension of perfectionism drain away into the damp earthen floor. There is no need to be unbroken here. The Muro is a safe place for the fractured. It is a place where time is used to heal rather than to erode, and where the darkness is a supportive companion rather than a source of fear. The humidity acts as a softening agent for the soul, making your thoughts more pliable, more forgiving, and more aligned with the slow organic rhythms of the earth. We spend a long, unhurried moment contemplating the concept of mushin, or the state of no mind, which the artisan achieves through his repetitive, focused labor. This state is not a void, but a profound fullness, a total immersion in the present moment where the boundary between the craftsman and the lacquer dissolves. As you sit here watching the shadows of the drying trays sway against the wall, you are invited into a similar state of being. You are not doing anything, you are simply being in history. The logic of the daytime, the lists, the worries, the schedules, has no power here. The only thing that is real is the scent of cedar, the texture of the tatami, and the slow hardening of the resin in the dark. This is a form of spiritual curing, a process of allowing the scattered pieces of your consciousness to settle and bind together in the humid silence of the night. You are becoming a whole vessel once again, your own internal seams being filled with the gold of silence and the lacquer of peace. In the corner of the room, the single bronze oil lamp remains our only anchor to the visual world. Its flame is a tiny dancing metaphor for the human spirit, small, fragile, yet capable of illuminating the deepest darkness. The way the light interacts with the imperfections of the earthen walls is a lesson in perspective. A perfectly smooth wall would offer nothing for the light to catch, no texture to appreciate. But these walls, with their grains of sand and bits of straw, create a rich landscape of highlight and shadow. The flaws in the plaster are what give the room its character and its warmth. This is the heart of the Kintsugi lesson, that the texture of a life is found in its irregularities. The moments of struggle are the very things that allow the light of wisdom to take hold. You find yourself staring at a small protruding bit of straw in the wall, watching its long shadow stretch across the floor, and you feel a profound sense of affection for its humble, crooked presence. The silence of the Muro is not a flat, empty thing. It is a living silence, layered with the echoes of the centuries. It is the silence of the forest after the rain, the silence of a temple before the first chant of the morning. It is a silence that supports rather than threatens. It invites you to look inward, to find the quiet, unmoving center of your own being. The Kintsugi master works in this silence because it is the only environment where the voice of the material can be heard. He must listen to the lacquer, listen to the wood, and listen to the soul of the broken object. In the same way, this night is inviting you to listen to yourself. Away from the noise of the future, what does your heart say in the year 1460? It likely says that it is tired, that it is ready for rest, and that it is grateful for this moment of absolute, undisturbed sanctuary. The philosophy of the room is a lullaby for the intellect, a gentle command to stop analyzing and start experiencing the profound beauty of the now. As we approach the final hours of the night, the distinction between the physical room and the philosophical space begins to blur. You feel as though you're sitting inside a giant earthen tea bowl, and the night itself is the lacquer that is holding you together. The gold dust of the stars, visible through the tiny ventilation grate, is the final touch on the repair of your day. You are part of the art of the world, a precious, fragile, and beautifully mended thing. The sense of safety you feel is absolute. The Muro is a fortress of peace, its walls thick enough to keep out the entire modern world. You are tucked away in a pocket of time where only the gentle, only the slow, and only the beautiful are allowed to exist. The scent of the urushi, which was once so strange, has now become the very smell of home, a grounding ancestral fragrance that tells your brain it is finally time to surrender. The shadows have now colonized almost the entire room, leaving only the smallest circle of amber light around the workbench. This narrowing of focus is the final stage of the hypnotic descent. Your world has shrunk to the size of a single flickering flame, a single grain of gold, and a single slow breath. The philosophy of Kintsugi has done its work. It has reframed your breakage as a source of strength and your history as a source of beauty. You're ready to close your eyes, not in an act of avoidance, but in an act of profound trust. The darkness is a friend, the history is a cradle, and the golden sleep of the Muromachi night is a gift that you have earned. Let the last of your thoughts drift away like the microscopic sparks of the oil lamp, disappearing into the vast protective velvet of the dark. You are whole, you are beautiful, and you are finally deeply at peace. As the night continues its slow, majestic rotation over the ancient tiled roofs of Kyoto, we remain nestled within the humid earthen womb of the Muro, turning our minds toward the virtue that binds every element of this room together, the mastery of patience. In the world you left behind, time is often viewed as a fleeting commodity to be spent, saved, or raced against. But here, in the year 1460, time is a nourishing medium, a slow-moving river that carries the artisan and his work toward a state of perfection that cannot be forced. The Kintsugi master does not fight against time, he inhabits it. He understands that the lacquer will harden only when it is ready, drinking in the humidity at its own organic pace. This realization brings a profound, heavy stillness to the room. Every object on the cedar shelves is a testament to the power of waiting. The tea bowls, the lacquer jars, and the drying trays are all participating in a long, silent vigil, a meditation on the beauty of the gradual. We focus our quiet attention on the concept of jiwari, the slow, almost imperceptible creeping of the lacquer as it settles into the microscopic valleys of a ceramic fracture. This is not a process that can be hurried by heat or chemical intervention. It requires the absolute, unwavering stillness of the night and the constant maternal embrace of the damp air. You find yourself reflecting on your own life through this lens of patience. How often have you tried to force a solution, to hurry a healing, or to rush through a period of transition? In the soft amber glow of the oil lamp, those frantic efforts seem like distant, flickering shadows. The Muro teaches us that the most enduring bonds, the ones made of gold and resin, are those that are allowed to form in the quiet, in the dark, and in their own time. This is a liberating thought, a gentle permission to let go of the urgent and sink into the essential. You are being cured here, just like the lacquer, your spirit hardening into a more resilient and beautiful form through the simple act of existing in this patient space. The humidity in the room has a physical weight that encourages this surrender. It is a warm, moist pressure that seems to slow your heart rate and lengthen your breath until you are moving in perfect synchronization with the breath of the earthen walls. You are part of the room's internal climate, a temporary occupant of a micro-ecosystem dedicated to the slow and the steady. The scent of the urushi sap, which we have followed through its many stages, has now become a familiar, grounding companion. It no longer smells of the foreign forest, but of the very process of becoming. It is the scent of a wound being closed, a history being honored, and a future being secured. You inhale this fragrance deeply, letting it anchor your wandering mind to the heavy wooden workbench and the sleeping tools. There is nowhere else to be, and there is nothing else to do but witness the magnificent, silent work of time. We spend a long meditative moment contemplating the artisan's relationship with his own aging. In the Muromachi period, the passage of years is not seen as a decline, but as a ripening, a process of becoming seasoned like the cedar planks of the Furo cabinet. The master's hands, with their stains and calluses, are more beautiful and more capable than they were in his youth, because they carry the memory of 10,000 repairs. His patience is not a lack of energy, but a concentration of it, a focused, quiet power that comes from knowing exactly when to act and when to wait. As you watch the shadows of his tools dance on the wall, you feel a sense of profound respect for this seasoned wisdom. You're invited to view your own aging, your own wear and tear, as a similar process of refinement. Every year you have lived is a layer of lacquer, every struggle you have faced is a grain of gold dust, and the person you are becoming is a masterpiece of survival and grace. The silence of the Muro is the perfect environment for this kind of internal archaeology. Away from the noise of modern life, the still, small voice of your own intuition begins to resonate. It is a voice that speaks of endurance, of the beauty of the small, and of the profound importance of care. The Kintsugi philosophy is not just an aesthetic choice. It is a way of being in the world. It is the decision to look at the broken things, the broken pots, the broken dreams, the broken hearts, and say, I will not throw this away. I will make it whole again, and I will make it more beautiful than it was before. This commitment to restoration is the ultimate act of patience. It is the refusal to give in to the easy path of disposal and the courage to take the hard path of repair. You feel a surge of quiet strength as you align yourself with this commitment, a feeling that you too are a restorer of worlds. In the corner of the workbench, the small hand-forged iron weights used to hold paper in place look like dark, slumbering stones. They possess a gravitational pull that seems to draw the very energy of the room downward, into the earth. You find your own body responding to this gravity, your limbs feeling heavy and warm against the tatami mat. You are sinking into the history of the room, becoming a part of the long lineage of people who have found sanctuary within these earthen walls. The Muromachi night is a vast protective cloak that has been wrapped around you, shielding you from the cold winds of the future. You are safe, you are protected, you are home. The flickering of the oil lamp is the only clock that matters now. Its slow, rhythmic pulse marking the passage of moments that feel like hours, and hours that feel like moments. As the night progresses toward its final, darkest hour, the philosophy of patience reaches its ultimate expression. You realize that the goal of the kintsugi repair is not the finished object, but the process itself. The gold is not just the metal on the seam, it is the attention, the care, and the time that was poured into the bowl. The object is merely a souvenir of the artisan's presence in the moment. This realization allows you to finally let go of the need for a result. You don't need to reach sleep, you are already in the process of resting. You don't need to find peace, you are already in the process of being peaceful. The Muro has done its work. It has provided the climate, the scent, and the silence, and you have provided the presence. The union is complete. The air in the room is now so perfectly still that you can hear the incredibly faint, rhythmic thrum of the earth itself, a low-frequency vibration that is the sound of the world turning on its axis. It is a sound that has no beginning and no end, a constant underlying hum that connects you to the stars and the stones. You let your breath sink into this hum, letting it carry you out of the world of the specific and into the world of the universal. The image of the gold-seamed bowl resting in its cedar cabinet is a glowing internal icon that guides you through the final darkening corridors of wakefulness. You are ready to surrender, you are ready to be still, you are ready to trust the long, slow and golden journey of the night. The Muromachi dusk has fulfilled its ancient duty, and the silence of the Muro is now a warm, bottomless ocean of rest that is rising to meet you. As we linger in the deep velvet folds of this Muromachi night, our immersion leads us to a profound contemplation of the nature of strength itself. In the heavy, humid silence of the Muro, the traditional definitions of power and durability begin to dissolve and reshape themselves. We sit in the dim, golden light of the sesame oil lamp and consider the ceramics resting on the cedar shelves, objects that were born in the violent, transformative heat of the kiln, only to be broken by the casual weight of human gravity. This paradox of the fragile permanent is the heart of the Kintsugi master's world. He understands that while the fired clay is hard and seemingly eternal, it is also brittle and susceptible to the smallest of accidents. Yet, through the slow, patient application of the urushi lacquer and the gold, a new kind of strength is forged, a resilient, flexible strength that comes from having been broken and choosing to remain whole. We focus our quiet, meditative gaze on a specific fracture line on a dark, iron-glazed bowl to the untrained eye. This jagged crack was a mark of failure, a sign that the object's utility had ended. But here, under the watchful eyes of the artisan and the protective humidity of the room, that crack has become the most durable part of the entire vessel. The urushi resin in its cured state is a miracle of natural engineering. It is resistant to acids, to heat, and to the very passage of time itself. It does not merely sit on the surface of the break, it becomes a structural bridge, a bond that is often stronger than the original clay. This realization carries a powerful, life-affirming weight. It suggests that our own cracks, the traumas, the losses, and the moments of profound shattering we have all experienced do not make us weaker. When treated with the gold of awareness and the resin of self-care, these very points of breakage become the sources of our greatest resilience. You are not strong despite your scars, you are strong because of them. The air in the Muro, saturated with the scent of damp earth and ancient sap, seems to press this truth into your very skin. You feel a softening of the internal barriers you have built to hide your own perceived flaws. In the 15th century logic of this room, a flaw is nothing more than a space waiting for light. The humidity acts as a gentle, pervasive force that encourages you to stop resisting the reality of your history. You find yourself relaxing your shoulders, letting the tension of holding it all together slip away into the shadows of the workbench. You are safe here to be broken because you are in a place where restoration is the only law. The room does not judge the shattered pieces, it only sees the potential for the gold. This sense of absolute acceptance is a powerful sedative, drawing the sting out of old memories and replacing it with a warm, amber-hued peace. We spend a long, unhurried moment reflecting on the concept of keshin, or the manifestation of the object's spirit. The artisan believes that every bowl has a destiny, and that the moment of breaking is a vital part of that destiny, a necessary precursor to its ultimate golden form. This perspective transforms the accident into a sacred event. As you sit on the woven tatami, you are invited to view the accidents of your own life through this same elevated lens. Perhaps the moments where things fell apart were not interruptions of your path, but the very events that allowed your true golden self to be revealed. This shift in perspective is like the flickering of the oil lamp. It illuminates the dark corners of the mind, turning shadows into textures and fears into mysteries. You feel a profound sense of relief, a realization that nothing in your life has been wasted, and that every fragment of your experience is a precious material for the kintsugi of your soul. The silence of the room is now so deep that it feels as though the walls themselves are listening to your thoughts. The thick earthen plaster, the heavy cedar rafters, and the sleeping ceramics are all silent witnesses to this philosophical alchemy. You're participating in a tradition of care that spans centuries, a lineage of repair that refuses to accept the finality of destruction. This connection to the past provides a sense of immense, unshakable stability. You are not a solitary figure in a dark room. You are a part of a vast, slow-moving river of human devotion. The master's tools, resting in their orderly ranks on the Zelkova wood, are the physical symbols of this devotion. They are the instruments of a quiet revolution against the disposable and the forgotten. By simply being present in this room, you are aligning yourself with this revolution, choosing the path of the durable and the beautiful. In the corner of the workbench, a small wooden mallet used for preparing the lacquer sits in the shadows. Its head is rounded and burnished from years of striking, its handle darkened by the oils of the artisan's hand. It is a tool of impact, yet it sits now in absolute peaceful repose. It reminds us that even the most forceful actions eventually find their way back to stillness. The impact of your life, the noise, the stress, and the movement, is also finding its way back to stillness in the Muro. The night is a vast, cooling basin that receives the heat of your day and gently dissipates it. You find yourself focusing on the rhythmic, slow-motion dance of a single shadow cast by the mallet's handle. The shadow sways almost imperceptibly, a visual heartbeat that lulls you deeper into a state of profound hypnotic relaxation. The humidity in the room has reached a level of perfect, heavy equilibrium. It feels like a warm, liquid embrace that supports the weight of your body, making you feel light and floating even as you sink into the fibers of the tatami. The scent of the urushi has become so familiar that you no longer perceive it as a separate fragrance. It is simply the smell of the dark, a grounding, ancestral aroma that signals to your subconscious that the time for thought has ended. You are being cured by the night, your mind becoming as smooth and lustrous as a piece of polished black lacquer. The logic of the daytime is gone, replaced by the intuitive, sensory wisdom of the Muromachi dusk. You are a vessel of history resting in the safety of the dark, waiting for the gold. As the oil lamp begins its final low-burning phase, the circle of light on the workbench narrows to a small, intense point of amber. This is the eye of the room, the center of its quiet universe. You let your gaze rest on this point, allowing your vision to soften and blur. The images of the tools, the shelves, and the walls begin to merge into a single cohesive wash of shadow and gold. You are no longer observing the kintsugi process. You are the process. You are the lacquer. You are the gold, and you are the patient, humid air. The boundaries of yourself have dissolved into the atmosphere of the Muro, and you are finally beautifully at home in the year 1460. The temple bell of the distant monastery rings out one last time, a sound so faint and low that it is more of a vibration in the earth than a noise in the air. It is the final amen to the work of the day, a blessing on the silence of the night. You respond to this sound with a long, slow exhalation, releasing the last of your conscious awareness into the vast protective velvet of the dark. The Muromachi night is a cradle, the Muro is a sanctuary, and the golden sleep of history is a promise that is now being fulfilled. Close your eyes, let the strength of the scar be your comfort, and drift away into the deep, restorative, and infinite peace of the artisan's sanctuary. In this deepest hour of the Muromachi night, as the humidity within the Muro reaches its most profound and heavy saturation, we turn our internal gaze toward the most elusive element of the kintsugi art, the work that remains invisible. We sit in the absolute amber-hued stillness and contemplate the layers of lacquer that lie beneath the final shimmering line of gold. The master artisan spends weeks, sometimes months, building the foundation of a repair, layering the dark urushi, sanding it back with charcoal, and layering it again in the humid dark. Most of these layers will never be seen by the eyes of the future owners. They are buried beneath the surface, providing the hidden strength and the flawless level upon which the gold will eventually rest. This is a profound meditation on the nature of integrity, the commitment to excellence in the places that no one will ever look. It is the invisible masterpiece that exists in the heart of every true restoration. We focus our meditative awareness on the concept of okuri, the sending off of the artisan's spirit into the object. In the silence of the 1460s, there is no separation between the maker and the made. Every stroke of the spatula, every grain of charcoal dust, and every breath taken in this damp room is an investment of the artisan's life force into the ceramic. This realization brings a sense of immense quiet weight to the room. The objects on the cedar shelves are not just commodities, they are containers for a human legacy of care. As you sit on the woven tatami, you are invited to reflect on the invisible layers of your own life. Think of the quiet kindnesses you have performed, the patient endurance you have shown in moments of solitude, and the small internal repairs you have made to your own spirit when no one was watching. These are your foundational layers, the hidden urushi that gives your life its true, unshakable strength. You find yourself relaxing into this thought, feeling a deep sense of validation for the quiet, unseen parts of your journey. The air in the Muro, thick with the scent of ancient resin and damp earth, feels like a physical manifestation of this accumulated care. It is a dense, supportive medium that holds you in place, preventing the frantic noise of the external world from penetrating your sanctuary. You feel a softening of the need to be seen or recognized in the logic of the kintsugi room. The value of the work is inherent in the act of doing it, not in the praise it might receive. This shift in perspective is incredibly liberating. A gentle command to stop performing for the world and start nurturing the self. You are safe here to be silent, to be hidden, and to be precisely who you are in the dark. The humidity acts as a warm, protective shroud that dissolves the ego, allowing you to merge with the collective spirit of the room, a spirit that has valued integrity over appearance for hundreds of years. We spend a long, unhurried moment contemplating the life of the tools that rest upon the Zelkova workbench. These objects, though made of wood, iron and bamboo, possess a dignity that comes from their long service to the cause of repair. They are not merely instruments. They are the faithful companions of the artisan's journey. The way the light catches the worn handle of a brush or the polished edge of a stone tells a story of a lifetime of focused attention. This is the beauty of usage, the grace that comes to an object through being handled with love and purpose. You find yourself viewing your own body through this lens. Your hands, your eyes, and your heart are the tools of your life's work. They may be worn, they may be tired, but they are magnificent because of the service they have rendered. This feeling of gratitude for the physical self is a powerful anchor, drawing you down into a state of deep sensory peace. The silence of the room is now so thick it seems to have a rhythmic pulse of its own, a slow oceanic throb that matches the expansion and contraction of the cedar boards. In this state of total immersion, you begin to understand the kintsugi master's relationship with failure. To him, a mistake is not an end, but a new beginning, a chance to sand back the layer, to re-evaluate the mixture, and to try again with a deeper understanding. The room is a laboratory of second chances, a place where the concept of ruin is fundamentally rejected. This realization is like a cooling balm for the mind. It removes the fear of being wrong or imperfect. You're in a space where everything can be mended, where time is infinite, and where the goal is not speed but resonance. You feel your mind slowing down to match this frequency, the frantic pacing of modern thought replaced by the steady, unhurried rhythm of the Muromachi night. In the corner of the workbench, a small bundle of silk threads, dyed a deep cinnabar red, sits waiting to be used for binding a tool. The color is vivid and rich, even in the low light, a tiny spark of vitality in the shadows. It represents the thread of continuity that runs through all human history, the persistent, unwavering desire to create, to fix, and to care. You find your own awareness following this thread back through the centuries, connecting your present moment of rest to the thousands of people who have sat in rooms like this, seeking the same stillness and the same golden restoration. You are not alone in the dark. You are part of a vast ancestral tapestry of repair. This sense of belonging is the ultimate comfort, a feeling of being tucked into a global family of healers and dreamers. The humidity in the room has now reached its absolute peak, creating a sensation of being weightless, as if you were floating in a warm subterranean sea of tranquility. The scent of the urushi has deepened into a complex, sweet, and heavy perfume that seems to bypass the intellect and speak directly to the deepest, most primitive parts of the brain. It is the smell of the earth's own healing power, a fragrance that promises safety and invites surrender. You find your eyelids becoming impossibly heavy, the golden circle of the oil lamp blurring into a soft, radiating glow that fills your entire field of vision. The world of form and figure is dissolving into a world of texture and light. As the oil lamp flickers on the very edge of extinction, the shadows of the room seem to lean in closer, not to threaten, but to embrace. The Muro is a sanctuary of the invisible, a place where the most important work is done in the dark, and where the greatest beauty is that which is felt rather than seen. You are ready to become a part of this invisible masterpiece. You are ready to let the night layer its silence over your thoughts, sanding away the jagged edges of your day until only the smooth, resilient foundation of your spirit remains. The gold is within you, waiting for the morning, but for now the dark is enough. The distant sound of the wind in the bamboo grove has died down, leaving a silence so profound that it feels sacred. You take one last, long and deep breath of the resin-scented air, letting it anchor you to the very center of the 15th century. You are whole, you are cared for, and you are resting in the heart of history. The Muromachi dusk has completed its work, and the golden sleep of the artisan sanctuary is now yours to keep. Close your eyes, let the invisible legacy of care be your pillow, and sink into the deep, dark, and infinite peace of the night. As we enter the penultimate stage of our journey through this ancient Muromachi night, the very atmosphere of the Muro begins to shift from a place of active restoration to a place of absolute final repose. The heavy humidity which has served as our constant companion now feels like a physical presence, a warm, invisible ocean that has slowly risen to meet the ceiling, suspending everything in a state of weightless grace. You are no longer merely a visitor in this room. You have become an integral part of its internal rhythm, your heartbeat slowing to match the tectonic pulse of the earthen walls. The oil lamp, our steadfast guide through the darkness, is now reaching the final moments of its long amber vigil. The pool of sesame oil has been nearly exhausted, and the flame has shrunk to a tiny, intense bead of blue and violet light. This fading glow does not diminish the room, rather it deepens the quality of the shadows, turning the corners into soft velvet invitations to forgetfulness. We spend a long drifting moment focusing on the rhythmic expansion and contraction of the air itself. In this profound stillness, you can almost hear the room breathing. The thick, mud-plastered walls seem to inhale the cool night air through the bamboo grate and exhale the warm, resinous scent of the curing lacquer. This is a slow, oceanic movement, a cycle of life that has continued undisturbed since the foundations of this house were first laid in the moist soil of Kyoto. You find your own breath mimicking this cycle, becoming shallower and more effortless, a soft, hushed whisper of air that requires no thought and no exertion. With every exhalation, you feel a further layer of your physical self dissolving into the dark. Your limbs feel heavy, warm, and wonderfully distant, as if they are resting miles away on a bed of soft, sun-warmed moss. The scent of the Muro has now achieved its final, most intoxicating complexity. The sharp, medicinal notes of the fresh lacquer have surrendered to a deep, earthy sweetness, a fragrance that smells of old cedar forests after a summer rain, and the faint, dusty nostalgia of a temple library. This scent acts as a direct bridge to the deepest chambers of the mind, bypassing the logic of the waking world and inviting the spirit to wander into the realm of dreams. It is a grounding, ancestral aroma that speaks of safety, of continuity, and of the profound beauty of things that endure. You inhale this fragrance with a sense of immense gratitude, letting it fill your lungs and your consciousness until there is no room left for the distractions of the modern world. You are anchored in the year 1460, wrapped in a cocoon of natural elements that have been curated specifically for your peace. Turning our internal gaze toward the workbench one last time, we see the tools resting in a state of perfect geometric order. The spatulas, the brushes, and the whetstones are no longer instruments of labor. They are silent icons of the day's devotion, their work complete, their purpose fulfilled. They look like small slumbering creatures in the dying light, their surfaces catching the final microscopic sparks of the flame. The ceramic vessels on the cedar shelves, the broken and the mended, have all settled into their night-long conversation with the humidity. They are safe. They are being held. They are being made whole in the dark. This sense of collective safety is a powerful, hypnotic force that pulls at the very edges of your awareness. If these fractured things can find such absolute peace in the Muro, then so can you. The shadows are now moving with a slow, liquid grace, flowing across the floor and climbing the walls until only the smallest point of light remains on the workbench. This narrowing of the visual field is a gentle, persistent command to let go. The world is shrinking, the light is fading, and the need for sight is being replaced by the power of feeling. You feel the texture of the tatami mat beneath you, the interlocking fibers of the rush grass providing a rhythmic, grounding topography for your body. You feel the warmth of the heavy air against your skin, a delicate, moist pressure that feels like being tucked in by the hand of history itself. You are being lulled by the physical reality of the room, a tactile lullaby that speaks of stability, of care, and of the infinite patience of the earth. The distant sound of a night bird, perhaps an owl in the deep bamboo grove, drifts through the ventilation grate, a soft hooting call that is muffled by the thick humidity. It is a lonely, beautiful sound that reinforces the absolute solitude of your sanctuary. You are tucked away in a secret fold of time, a place where the noise of the city and the demands of the future cannot reach you. The silence of the Muro is not empty, it is a full silence, heavy with the weight of the mountain clay and the density of the cedar heartwood. It is a silence that supports your spirit, providing a solid, unmoving foundation for your descent into sleep. You find yourself sinking deeper and deeper into this silence, letting it swallow the last, flickering thoughts of your day until only the sensation of being remains. As the oil lamp flickers one last time, a tiny glowing ember of the wick rises into the air and disappears into the dark. The flame is gone, leaving only the soft grey-blue luminescence of the starlight filtering through the bamboo grate. This transition from amber to indigo is the final signal for the mind to surrender. The room is now a monochromatic landscape of peace, a realm of soft edges and deep protective shadows. You are part of the dark now, a shadow among shadows, a quiet presence in a quiet room. The Muromachi night has fully reclaimed the Muro, and the work of the artisan has been surrendered to the invisible hands of the night. You feel a profound sense of lightness, a feeling that you are floating just above the surface of the tatami, carried by the heavy, humid air. The boundaries of your physical self have become blurred and indistinct, merging with the scent of the resin and the texture of the cedar. You are no longer a self observing a room. You are the room itself. You are the slow curing of the lacquer, the silent waiting of the gold, and the rhythmic breathing of the earthen walls. The logic of the day is a forgotten language, replaced by the deep sensory wisdom of the dark. You are ready. You are whole. You are finally beautifully arriving at the doorstep of a dreamless rest. The earth beneath the house feels like a solid maternal force, a gravity that is not a pull but a hug. You surrender to this gravity, letting your consciousness drift down through the floorboards, through the layers of clay and stone into the deep, cooling heart of the Kyoto soil. Here, in the absolute center of the night, there is only the stillness and the gold. The Muromachi dusk has faded into a deep, eternal midnight, and the silence of the Muro is a warm, bottomless ocean that is now closing gently over your head. Sleep is no longer a destination, it is the very air you breathe. Close your eyes, let the fading scent of the cedar be your final thought, and sink into the profound golden and restorative peace of the artisan's sanctuary. The darkness within the Muro is now absolute, a thick, protective velvet that has finally and completely extinguished the last ghosts of the amber flame. In this perfect sightless void, your other senses reach a state of ultimate, transcendental clarity before they too begin to dissolve into the mists of deep sleep. The humidity has become a part of you, a warm, rhythmic pulse that synchronizes your blood with the slow, invisible hardening of the lacquer on the shelves. There is no longer any distinction between the air you breathe and the atmosphere of the room. You are inhaling the very essence of the Muromachi night, the scent of damp cedar, the sweetness of the urushi, and the cold mineral breath of the earthen walls. This fragrance is now the only reality, a soft olfactory anchor that keeps you safely tethered to this sanctuary of 1460, even as your conscious mind begins to drift away into the vast, uncharted ocean of dreams. You feel the weight of your body as something distant and beautiful, a vessel of clay that has finally found its perfect resting place. Every muscle in your face has surrendered to the gravity of the earth. Every joint has loosened and every nerve has been smoothed over by the heavy, humid silence. You are sinking not into a void but into a reservoir of history. The tatami mat beneath you feels as soft as a cloud, its woven fibers whispering a final, rhythmic lullaby of summer grass and sun-drenched fields. The world of the future, with its harsh lights and relentless speed, has been erased, replaced by a single eternal moment of golden stillness. You are tucked away in the deepest pocket of the past, protected by walls of mountain mud and rafters of ancient pine, where time itself has stopped its frantic march to sit quietly by your side. In this final state of being, you realize that the kintsugi repair of your spirit is complete. The scattered fragments of your attention, the fractures of your worries, and the jagged edges of your day have all been joined together by the lacquer of silence and the gold of this restorative rest. You are whole, you are resilient, and you are radiant in the dark. The image of the gold-seamed bowl, resting in its cedar cabinet, glows faintly in your mind's eye, a steady internal North Star that guides you through the final darkening corridors of awareness. You are no longer watching the gold, you have become the gold, you are the light that shines from within the crack, the beauty that emerges from the break, and the profound peace that follows the struggle. The silence of the Muro now begins to hum with a low cosmic resonance, a sound that is both the heartbeat of the artisan and the rotation of the stars. It is a deep vibrational ohm that resonates through the floorboards and into the marrow of your bones. You let your breath ride this vibration, letting it carry you further and further away from the shore of wakefulness. Each inhalation is a slow liquid ascent into peace, and each exhalation is a long, effortless surrender into the dark. The darkness is not empty, it is a presence, a maternal force that has waited all night to finally take you into its arms. You are home, you are safe, you are exactly where you were always meant to be. The distant temple bell, the rustle of the bamboo, and the dripping of the garden stones have all merged into a single unified frequency of rest. The room is a temple, the workbench is an altar, and your sleep is the final sacred ritual of the night. You feel a sense of immense, unshakable gratitude for this sanctuary, for the artisan's care, and for the long, slow journey that has brought you to this threshold of oblivion. The Muromachi dusk has fulfilled its ancient promise, delivering you to the very center of a deep, dreamless, and restorative slumber that will last as long as the lacquer needs to cure. There is no more to know, there is no more to feel, there is only the gold. The scent of the cedar fades to a mere memory. The texture of the tatami becomes a weightless dream. The hum of the earth becomes a silent blessing. You are drifting now, a single spark of light returning to the great, velvet fire of history. The Muro remains, the lacquer remains, and the gold remains, but you are now part of the infinite stillness that holds them all. The journey is over. The repair is done, the night is yours. Sleep now in the heart of the 15th century. Sleep now in the cradle of the dark. Sleep now in the golden silence of the Muro. Welcome to Sleepy History with Wesley, your personal sanctuary of ancient tales. Here, we blend authentic historical events with gentle AI technology to recreate immersive, soothing journeys through time. This channel is crafted specifically for relaxation and sleep support. TAND is not a substitute for professional medical advice. For your safety, please do not listen while driving or operating machinery. Now, close your eyes and let history carry you into a peaceful sleep.